Everybody in their seats. Good. We're back up here with everyone at the podium again. Good morning. We're going to convene this meeting of the Board of County Commissioners here at 9:31. And we're going to call the meeting for this June 22nd and confirm that we do have a quorum. This meeting, as always, may be viewed in person at the BCC Chambers, on SGTV, on YouTube, and by registering to participate in the Zoom webinar. Residents can provide public comment in person or by registering to speak on the Seminole County website and the Board of County Commissioners webpage. If you are unable to join via computer or online, interested parties should call 407-665-0808 for additional information on how to participate via a telephone. Please adhere to the CDC COVID-19 guidelines and silence all cell phones and electronic devices. As you can see, I always try to do this right at the same time so that everybody is doing it and remembers to do it. Perfect. All right, we're going to call to order. We are honored today to have Reverend John Pierce Jr. of Ethos 350 in Sanford to do the invocation. And Gray Wilson, where are you, Gray Wilson? I don't see you. Gray, are you here?
He was here.
Gray, you are not here.
Outside.
He was outside? Well, he just lost his chance. Cliff Long, will you please honor us and do the Pledge of Allegiance after the invocation? Come on up here. Thank you very much.
Good morning, and let us pray. Heavenly Father, it's so wonderful to be able to address you as Father. Just recently we celebrated Father's Day, and to think of the Lord of the universe, the God of the universe, as being our Father, it's just an awesome thought. Lord, we are asking your blessing upon this time together this morning. I don't know all of the individuals who you have chosen and placed in leadership of our county, and yet, Lord, we know that they need wisdom, and those who have come here to present, we know, Lord, that they also need wisdom in making their presentations. So we're asking, Lord, that you would bless this time together, that you would give graciousness in speech and unity of thought, and Lord, most of all, just wisdom in making whatever decisions need to be made today. We thank you for those who serve our country and serve it well in the armed forces and our first responders. We ask for your protection upon them. We also ask, Lord, for healing for our nation, especially from this pandemic, and we ask that, Lord, you would help those who are still suffering effects from it and ask for their healing. So, Lord, we just commend this day to you with great thankfulness and joy in our hearts. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Cliff.
Let us all proclaim, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, both of you. Really appreciate the opportunity for our citizens to get involved in the commission meeting, and always that they are so willing to participate. We have proclamations, awards, and presentations today, and Commissioner Lockhart is going to be reading the proclamation recognizing Sergeant Bruce Fleming. Commissioner.
Commissioners, I'd like to move the following proclamation recognizing United States Army Sergeant Bruce Fleming for his outstanding service to the United States and Seminole County. Whereas the brave men and women of our Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, and Space Force demonstrate a resolute spirit and unmatched selflessness, reminding us there are few things more American than giving of ourselves to make a difference in the lives of others. And whereas throughout our country's history, generations of service members have answered the call to leave their families, their jobs, and put their futures and even their lives on the line to valiantly defend our nation and its inalienable rights. And whereas, for many service members, the sacrifice has ended in permanent injury or death, yet their spirit remains in the continued preservation of our freedoms and the promise of liberty. And whereas there are more than 30,000 living veterans in Seminole County who served our nation in times of peace and war, by their service, they kept America strong. And whereas Sergeant Bruce Fleming served the United States Army from 1981 to 1984, and in the United States Army Reserve from 1984 to 1990. And whereas Sergeant Bruce Fleming was designated as a radio operator attached to Charlie Battery 1st of the 7th Air Defense Artillery, and was awarded an Army Commendation Medal, Army Achievement Medal, and Army Service Ribbon. And whereas Sergeant Bruce Fleming joined the El Paso Police Department, where he worked as a patrol officer from 1984 to 1989, and as a police sergeant from 1989 to 1999. In April 2001, he moved to Lake Mary and joined the Lake Mary Police Department as a code enforcement officer. And whereas Sergeant Bruce Fleming is a founding member of the Central Florida Code Enforcement Association, where he served as president, vice president, and sergeant at arms. He has received numerous awards, to include the City Manager's Special Recognition in 2002, 2007, and 2011, Building and Life Safety Outstanding Recognition in 2006, and Lake Mary Police Department Civilian of the Year in 2014. And whereas Sergeant Bruce Fleming has brought great distinction upon himself, the United States Army, his country, and Seminole County, now therefore be it proclaimed that we, the Board of County Commissioners of Seminole County, Florida, express our gratitude, admiration, and respect for Sergeant Bruce Fleming for his outstanding service to the United States Army and residents of Seminole County. Be it further proclaimed that this proclamation be presented to Sergeant Bruce Fleming, along with our sincere congratulations and recognition as Seminole County's Veteran of the Month, adopted this 22nd day of June, 2021.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Mr. Fleming, please come on up. Tiny piece right here.
I need a rearview mirror.
Okay, I got you, girl.
To the Honorable Commission, I'd like to say thank you very much for your awarding me this special recognition today. I joined the Army in 1981. I served there until 1984 on active duty. Then I went to the reserves until 1990, I think it was. Left the Army and went into the law enforcement community. Worked as a police officer from 1984 to 1999. Whereas I had left the police department, law enforcement community, and I moved to Lake Mary area, and I became a code enforcement officer. Although when I became a code enforcement officer, I had no idea what that was. But now, after 20 years of doing it, I think I'm starting to get the feel for it. Again, let me say thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service, sir. Once again, I need to read the public participation portion. Pursuant to Florida law, the public has the right to be heard on all propositions, except when the Board of County Commissioners is acting on ministerial or emergency matters, or conducting a meeting exempt from Section 286.011 Florida statutes. Public comment time on propositions shall be 3 minutes for individuals and 6 minutes to an individual who can demonstrate that he or she is an official representative of a formally established entity such as a homeowners association or advocacy group. The public will be provided the opportunity to be heard on non-agenda matters at the end of the meeting. County Manager, do you have any changes in the consent agenda?
No, sir.
Do you have anyone is there anyone from the public that wishes to comment on consent items 2 through 15? I believe that we received an email from Ms. Haller supporting item number 13, which was the Little Wekiva restoration. And I do believe that we also have Gray Wilson here to speak on that. So Gray, would you like to come up to the podium, please?
Yes. Thank you. It's very good to be here today. Want to...
Name and address for the
Oh,
record.
yes, thank you.
That's okay.
It's Gray Wilson, 1125 Broadgate Lane, Lake Mary. And I want to thank the commission for our gratitude from the Friends of Wekiva River for taking action and the ongoing vigilance for protecting the entire area of Wekiva. Is there a place I can put up some photos to display?
Would somebody please help him with that?
Ray, there's another microphone in the back that you can use.
Depends on how much focus you have.
I'm not sure how that's coming in, but hey, picture's a little bit here. This is the Little Wekiva River on the left-hand side, 2018. And this is the exact same spot last week. That river is gone. It is a path that has to be continually use the machete to bring back in. So it is in a terrible shape right now. But this particular item in front of the board is going to help that situation. I want to thank the leadership of Kim Ornberg, who's the manager of the Seminole County Public Works, and the work of her team, including Gloria Evie, and they've been truly critical, going for the remediation of this particular project, regardless of the work that we're doing with a number of different organizations, elected officials, on finding out what the cause is. The key here is to move forward with fixing this, and then find out perhaps how it came about, because that needs to be addressed as well. The one major thing to keep in mind that this area is rapidly getting worse. The Little Wekiva River situation worsens. There's invasive plants have already grown into the sediment in the dry area in the main channel. And I think we had Dr. Shriver's, this is about 400 feet from her backyard. Katie Montereef lives a few houses up. Yes, that's Katie's Landing. This is very dear to our hearts. This is a heartbreak, and we are very glad that the county has stepped forward, and we continue to want to work with the county on this situation. I think it's something that's going to be ongoing for a long time, and I think that these funds start right away. I think we're looking in the fall before we can really, in a little bit drier season, to get this thing underway. So any comments? I would like to hear any concerns internally from the commissioners on the direction that you all are taking working with on the federal level and on the state level, because I think there are a number of parties out there that we need to look at to see how this came about and what we're going to do about it, and what this commission is going to do to help make sure that this doesn't happen again, and the parties, if they're found responsible, that are held to making sure that the taxpayers don't end up paying for this, because this could have been caused by a third party. So in any case, thank you very much. I want to thank the county very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wilson. I will tell you that we all have our suspicions as to who caused it. Many of us have the same suspicion, but it has to be proven. And I think that's part of the reason with the study that the state of Florida has given the money. As you know, the St. Johns River Water Management District has also given another grant of $425,000. So we have a grant from the state, a grant from the St. John's. We're putting in our money with this, and we need your help. I know that the Friends of the Wekiva are extremely concerned. My good friend, and I'm not going to say how old she is, but Katie Moncrief is very upset, and so is everyone else. And we understand what a valuable asset this is. So we're doing everything we can, and I believe that the state agencies are prepared to help, as is our Congresswoman, if we can find out exactly what the situation is. And if it is the third party that we suspect, we would hope the DOT will take the immediate action. But we're all committed to fix the Little Wekiva.
Yes, thank you very much, as this county always has in the Wekiva and Little Wekiva River. So much appreciated, and we have to stay vigilant. And we're here to thank you for taking this very quick action, and staff stepped right up, and I wanted to make sure we recognize them. So thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on something in the consent agenda 2 through 15? Seeing none. Commissioners, is there anyone wanting to pull anything from the agenda? Commissioner?
Item number 2.
Item number 2. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to pull it. I just want to make a comment on item number 3, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please, go right ahead.
It's a standard approval that's on a consent agenda. That's why it's there. But presently, we have quarterly these approvals. I really think that we need to have one master agreement, and it needs to be on an annual basis. I'm hoping that since this is from July to September, that come October, we have one master agreement to approve for the year instead of doing this quarterly.
And I believe that is already in the works.
We spoke about it. I just want to repeat it. That's all.
Yep. Okay, anyone else? Is there a motion 3 through 15 to be approved?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Zimbauer, second by her. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. We are now on item number 2. Commissioner Lockhart.
So there are a couple of different streets named Ford in this area, as you saw in your agenda backup. And one of the reasons for renaming this Ford is that there are other Fords, or another Ford. And I just wanted to make sure that you all also realize there is another application pending to rename another Ford. So, Mr. Harris, could you just bring us up to speed on how this renaming came to be, and perhaps maybe the one that's in process?
Sure. So Alan Harris, Chief Administrator for the Office of Emergency Management. Our addressing division does an analysis with the help of the 911 Center of any roads that could be confused when a 911 call comes in, meaning that the name is the same. And unfortunately, previous to good GIS mapping and things like that, and municipalities in the county, and this is decades ago, not working as closely as we do today, there are numerous roads that are named the exact same thing. So as those are identified, we contact the individuals that are on that road, any parcel. For this particular one, it's one parcel. So we contacted one person for this one, and we asked them if it would be okay if we would rename the road. The road actually curves. It doesn't make a 90-degree angle, so it's actually an extension of that road. So the individual was acceptable to us changing the name. For other ones, it's a little bit more challenging. There may be 15, 20 parcels. Everyone has their address. They send their birthday cards and their Christmas cards and all of this to the address, and there's a lot of work that goes into that. They have to change all of their billing information, their insurance information, all of that. So for those, it takes a little bit longer. But any of the times that we identify these, and unfortunately, and I don't want to scare you, but there's a lot of them. I didn't realize until I was given addressing as one of the divisions how many there are, how many oranges there are in this county, and we're not even Orange County, and how many Fords there are, and how many multiple names, like Lake Park and then Park Lake. And if you say it wrong, the 911 dispatcher, thank God we have GIS triangulation now, but before, it could be very, very challenging. So we are working through them. It is a process because we have to contact all the homeowners on the road and, to the best of our ability, get them to accept a new road, a name. And then we have a list of names that have not been taken anywhere else in the county that are possibilities that they can select from. Sometimes they like those, sometimes they don't like those, sometimes they don't jive with the neighborhood. Like if the neighborhood is all palm tree names and we choose something different. I mean, it's just like we named, and I'm sorry, I'm going a little bit, but like we named the senator. I mean, it took a little bit of time for us to come up with the road name that fit the Five Points complex that was an icon of Seminole County. So it's a long answer. That was not the Reader's Digest answer.
No, that's okay. It's helpful to give the background. So because there is another application pending for another Ford, this agenda item caused some confusion in the community, and because they are hopeful that there is another name that will be considered for the Ford that is north of 436. So for clarification, this is the Ford that is south of 436?
That's correct.
Okay. So for folks in the community who are excited about the opportunity to rename the other Ford, that will be coming possibly...
Again, contacting all the individuals and making sure that there is no dissenting, and there may be a couple. So
Okay. Maybe you could just keep us updated.
Sure.
and let us know when that one might be coming to us and where we are in the process.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. I just needed to get that on the record, that we haven't overstepped yet.
Yeah, this
Not
is
that we couldn't overstep,
I'm appreciating
but we haven't
saying
done it
this.
yet.
This is the south side of the
Thank you.
the road. Yeah.
Okay,
A lot of Fords,
yes.
called Chevys,
Hey,
Buicks,
easy.
you know.
Don't evaporate all the Ford roads.
Okay, Edsel, how's that?
So, Commissioners, I'm happy to make a motion to approve item number 2 as presented by our Emergency Management Division.
Second.
Motion by Lockhart, second by Delory. Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, passes unanimously. We are now on item 16, County Attorney, Stratford Point Apartments, multifamily housing revenue bonds.
Yes, thank you. For the record, Paul Chipok, Deputy County Attorney. This is a resolution solely for the limited purposes of Section 147, subsection F of the Internal Revenue Code, for the issuance by the Housing Finance Authority of Orange County, Florida, not exceeding $43 million of its multifamily housing revenue bonds for the Stratford Point Apartments, for the purposes of financing the cost of acquisition, rehabilitation, and equipping the multifamily residential rental apartment project, as described in the resolution. The county is not assuming any liability or debt by this. This is merely a mandatory requirement of the Internal Revenue Code, so the resolution is before you for consideration.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. County Attorney, just as a question, these are staying affordable housing then?
Yes, yes.
Have to.
Okay.
Good. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the item as presented to us today.
Second.
Motion and seconded, discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, passes unanimously. Constitutional Officers Consent Agenda, item 17, Clerk's Office. Anyone from the public have any comment on item number 17? Seeing none. Commissioners?
Move to approve item 17.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Zimbauer, second by Commissioner Hurd. Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. On the regular agenda, item 18 is a consideration of a proposal in naming the new building at 5 Points. The naming of the new 5 Points building and the consideration of the proposal would be the Seminole County Annex to the Justice James E. C. Perry Annex Building. Discussion.
You said Perry, correct?
Perry.
Perry.
Perry, okay.
Is there any discussion? Commissioner Zimbauer.
I want to thank my fellow commissioners for first allowing me to bring this forward for consideration. I would like to also thank the Seminole County Bar Association, who's been active in this request as well. So thank you all very much for at least allowing us to bring it forward.
Further discussion? Seeing none, motion?
So moved?
Second.
Moved and seconded to honor this Justice James E. C. Perry for the annex building of the Justice for Seminole County Criminal Justice Center. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Do we want to hear from the public?
Is there anyone from the, I'm sorry. Melanie, please forgive me. Go ahead.
That's all right. It's okay.
She was just there in case you had any
Yes.
questions, but I don't have
I'm
anything.
sorry. Is there anyone else? My apologies. Didn't think that the naming, other than Justice Perry is been an incredible asset to this community.
Well,
So it's-
correct, and I would be remiss to not point out that, Justice Perry has been the only Supreme Court justice to come from Seminole County, which is fantastic, considering the size of our county and considering the pool of candidates that existed at that time. It's that, along with his input and helping the community in so many aspects. Many of us here know him, know of his work, just a fantastic human being. So I appreciate my fellow commissioners, again, considering and approving that. Thank you.
Well deserved, well deserved. Item number 19, Wekiva Island Gallery Zero Special Events Permit. Ms. Robinson.
Good morning, Mary Robinson with Planning and Development Services. This item is item 19 on your agenda, stated as a request for a special event permit for the Wekiva Island Gallery Zero located at 1014 Miami Springs Drive. Excuse me. The applicant's requesting approval of a special event permit for the Gallery Zero grand opening event, and live music will also be performed throughout the weekend. The requested dates for the event will be held Friday, July 3rd through Sunday, July 4th. The hours of operation proposed are 8 a.m. through 11 p.m. The applicant is requesting that the Board of County Commissioners approve a deviation from the development order for Wekiva Island and permit 750 guests at any given time and extend the closing hours of operation on Sunday, July 4th from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. As a basis for the request to exceed the visitor capacity from the approved 395 visitors as permitted by the development order to 750, the applicant has stated they are anticipating walk-in guests to attend the event. The development order does provide a provision that the Board of County Commissioners can approve an increase in visitor capacity through the approval of a special event permit. The residents of the adjacent subdivision, Sweetwater Springs, have voiced opposition to the number of proposed guests. Additionally, the residents are also opposed to the amplified sound allowed by the special event permit and are requesting that the board keep the level of sound to be consistent with the standards set forth in the county noise ordinance. County staff does not support the requested increase in visitor capacity due to concerns of where the additional visitors will park, the increase in traffic on Miami Springs Road, and the increase in noise due to the additional guests. As an item of note, no noise complaints were filed with the Sheriff's Office during previous special events in 2020, and also again in 2021 during the Spring Fling and Paint Out special event, specifically during the gala. The development order allows for 4 special events per year, not to exceed a total of 60 days. This is the 4th event to be approved for 2021. The special event in your agenda includes findings and conditions of approvals. Staff is recommending that the Board of County Commissioners approve the special event permit for the Wekiva Island Gallery Cerro with a maximum of 395 guests. And I'm here to answer any questions, as is the applicant is also present.
Questions of Ms. Robinson? Commissioner Zimbauer.
Ms. Robinson, you note that there were noise complaints that were filed to the sheriff's office. In consideration of our noise ordinance, did those levels exceed the county's noise ordinance? Do we know?
It's my understanding that they did, but since they were granted the special event permit to be permitted to have amplified sound, there was nothing the sheriff's office could do to enforce.
And we have that memorialized, that it exceeded the noise ordinance decibel levels?
That's what was relayed to me.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any proof of that?
I don't have proof of it with me, no.
That's what I was trying to get to, yes.
I do, I just have the dates of the complaints were filed.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions of Ms. Robinson?
Just for the record, the information on the noise levels would be in the custody of the sheriff's office. We don't have that information. They did send the information that
Can you
Mary
speak
just...
into the microphone, please?
The information that Mary just relayed to you was based on an email that I think all of you may have received in your offices. I don't recall that email indicated whether or not, or what the findings were with respect to the noise ordinance. So just wanted you to know, we can get that information for you, but it's not something that we have in our offices.
Well, I would only say,
Commissioner Zimbauer.
in these matters, if we're going to make any statements regarding a complaint, what was the outcome of that complaint? I understand the special permitting process, but I think it would be helpful to this board if we understood, did that decibel level go to the level of our noise ordinance? It would be helpful.
Commissioner Lockhart.
So I want to get clarification on the purpose of the special event permit, because I have folks in my district as well who have anticipated that they are going to have an event and that it would violate the county's regular ordinances, and that's why they requested the special event permit, because that makes it allowable. Can you explain that?
Correct. So we do have a noise ordinance. There are a couple of ways that you can get an exemption from the requirements under the noise ordinance. One is through a special events permit, like you have before you today. The other is we have a specific permit that folks can apply for. It's a noise exemption permit, which is kind of like a mini special event permit. It deals just with noise, though. So, and those are approved on a staff level. Those don't come before you. But there are 2 different ways that folks can get permission to exceed the noise ordinance. And of course, those are on very limited basis. They usually have timeframes associated with them, et cetera.
Continue.
So if someone was having a special event or a party that maybe wasn't like open to the public, they would ask for that anticipating that they are going to be exceeding the existing ordinance levels.
Correct. So if a complaint was filed and the sheriff's office went out, and even if they measured it beyond the levels that are included in the ordinance, if they had an exemption permit or a special events permit, they would have permission to exceed those levels.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner DeLore.
I have a question for the county attorney, if I may. So this property is allowed to have, what I've just heard, 4 special event permits a year, correct?
That is correct, pursuant to their development order.
Okay. So that's basically telling us that 4 times a year that we're willing to entertain them going beyond what's allowed in their development order. That's what I'm hearing. Is
Yes,
that correct or not?
for your consideration. It's not mandatory.
It's not granted, it's just for our consideration. We're looking at and willing to entertain 4 times a year for them to go beyond what their DO or development order allows.
That is correct.
Okay.
Further questions of the staff before I open it up? So let me just make sure, Ms. Robinson, that we're all understanding. The recommendation from the staff is that it be approved with 3, which means the additional hours, which I believe are on Sunday. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And with additional amplification of sound, is that correct?
Yes.
But the guests would remain at $395. Is that what that's your recommendation?
Yes, Commissioner.
Is there anything else as part of that recommendation?
There are
Before I
some
open it up to
standard-
other folks?
Oh, well, there are just standard conditions.
The
that are in
normal standard
actual
conditions?
permit.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Further questions of Ms. Robinson or before I open it up to the public? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, so I have a question for Ms. Robinson then. On motions/recommendations, there's 5 of them, okay? And there's one that says, number 3, that says not to exceed 542 guests and employees. Can you talk to us about that?
Certainly. That was an alternative, but we felt we would present to the board as an option, and it's based on the number of parking spaces that are 271 spaces. Being that there are 2 guests per vehicle, we came up with the 542.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions of Ms. Robinson?
Chairman, if I could just clarify
Yes,
for the
go
record.
right ahead, please.
We talked about noise exemptions earlier. I do want to make sure that the record reflects that staff is not recommending a deviation from the requested standards for noise from the applicant. So we're not suggesting that you make any revision on that.
We just said amplified
just
sound,
wanted-
okay, so let's clarify that. So it's amplified sound, but the noise ordinance would still be in effect, so they cannot go above the noise
No,
ordinance?
no.
Okay, then let's
No,
be very clear.
they would, under the terms of the special event permit as recommended by staff, they would have an exception to the requirements under the noise ordinance consistent with the proposed development order for the special exception.
Which means that the sound would go in the opposite direction?
If you were to approve the special exception as proposed to you today, they would be able to exceed the noise ordinance standards.
And one of
Just
the
so,
con-
but
I'm
the
sorry.
sound would be directed to the river, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is that part of the, I'm trying to remember, that's
Yes,
part of the
sir,
development order?
that's what I was just going to say.
All right, thank you very much. All right, the applicant, any other questions of Ms. Robinson? Mary, I think you might want to stay close,
Yes.
okay? Does the applicant wish to speak at this time? Yes, we would. Come on up, Mr. Weinog.
And Mrs. Weinog.
And Mrs. Weinog.
Thank you very much. We, of course, I did put together a couple of slides for you.
Name and address for the record.
Thank you very much. My name is Bill Weinog.
Mary Weinog, we are at 3453 Peace Valley Way, Longwood, Florida, 32779.
Mr. Chairman, instead of her staying there on crutches, does she need a chair?
I tried to kick him in the butt. No,
I didn't ask you what happened.
I had
just
hip
wanted to-
surgery.
Would you like to sit? You're more than welcome.
He's
I'm
offering.
okay.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to try to do this quick, for those of you that know me, sometimes I don't do that, so I promise you I'll try to do this really quick. So, the Wekiva Island is a property we are very, very proud of, and I hope Seminole County is at large as well. I know we spend a lot of our efforts to make sure that we are something that our community can be very, very proud of. I do want to mention that everything we do down there is built around what we call our 3 pillars. It revolves around sustainability, number 1. We have a carbon neutral mission. Zero is our toolbox to get there. It revolves around our 2nd pillar, learning. We have a LEED Platinum classroom on property in which we reach out to the community to help teach environmental issues to the community. And the 3rd pillar is art. And obviously the art gallery, thank you very much for that. In our last DO, allowing that is something that's near and dear to us. It's been there for a while. But a part of art, something we tried to do in the music world, is we created this pandemic project called The Sounds of Wekiva. And of The Sounds of Wekiva, we tried to help our musician artist friends that were out of work. And we started this whole program around them. So those are our 3 pillars. And back several years ago, we did enter into a very detailed development order. That development order, many of you will remember, was a little painful to get through. We got through it with the neighbors. We came up with some very specific rules. In fact, when this was approved, I remember the commission saying this was probably the most detailed development order ever put together in Seminole County, and we believe it is. Now, let me say this. We believe in our development order. It's posted in our hallway where our employees are. We have monthly meetings to make sure that we are living up to our development order. And we have a liaison, which is my wife, to make sure that if there is an issue that the neighbors have there, that we have an open door. We chat with them. We want to make sure that we are good neighbors. Part of that development order, something we agreed to with the neighbors back when we went through this pain, was amplified sound. We said we would not have outdoor amplified sound except during special events. And so this is what we're asking for today, is amplified sound above and beyond the details that are outlined in our development order, which include additional, more stringent DBA requirements than the county code. So we know we're going to have if we have outdoor amplified sound, we have to come to you to get approval for it, because it is very clearly stated in our development order. And in fact, it was known 4 times a year we would come to ask you for this permission. In addition, it very specifically, Mary mentioned the special events. When we agreed to 4 special events a year, we understood most businesses in Seminole County are allowed 8. We thought we were giving to the community, giving back to the neighbors by cutting that in half. So we know we're allowed 4. And of the ones that we do every single year, it is like the Wekiva Paintout, which we come and talk to you every year about. The Wekiva Paintout is an event that we have done for 13 years to raise money for Keep Seminole Beautiful and the Wekiva Wilderness Trust. So this is something that is good. It's something that we give. We donate every dollar to those 2 foundations, which are very, very important to our community. Another special event for the last 7 years, setting aside the pandemic, which was a little painful for us all, but hopefully we're on the outside edge of that. For 7 years, we had the Green Egg Fest, which is, again, over 50 green egg enthusiasts come and cook food for folks, and they come and learn how to cook on the green eggs. It's an incredible event. And every year for the last 5 years, a commitment I made to our folks and our children was to create an incredible winter wonderland. We call it the Wekiva Winter Wonderland, where the kids can come down and play in the snow. Santa is there every day with Mrs. Claus. So you can see the type of events that we do at Wekiva Island. They are not horrific, terrible, disruptive events. And when we look at what a special event is, the county code, land development code is clear for what that is. We're asking for something special, something above and beyond what is outlined in the code and/or outlines very specifically in our development order. To us, we look back at what special events we've had. I go back to, I had my wife pull up a few of these last night that I could share with you. To us, when we signed this development order, it was clear to us what a special event was, because in 2013, February, 750 people was approved. for 30 days. July 13, 650. February 15, 750. December 17, 750. January 18, 750. These are what was approved. This is the history. This is what we understood a special event would mean to us when we entered into that development order. October 18, 980. And I'll tell you, every one of these we managed safely and well. We bring the police force, the sheriff's department in. They are our partners, and whatever we do down there, they are there every weekend. We are asking for 2 additional hours on the 4th of July. We normally close at 7 during the school year, and then during the summer, we close at 9. On the 4th of July, we're asking for 2 hours to stay open to 11. We are asking for an exception to amplified sound. We are hoping to have several bands play during the 2 days, which will be a nice 4th of July celebration as well. And we are asking for that 750 number that has been historically allowed since I've owned the property. So I think in summary, in the past, we've been allowed up to almost 1,000 folks, and we have managed that well. If you look at the number of parking spaces, thank you, Mary, for that, 271 parking spaces, 2.8 people per car would be 760 people almost. We have more than enough water closet fixtures with 11 there on site. We are not in any way asking for something that would cause a safety risk or a health risk to our patrons or our neighbors. We are not asking for that. Our special event, we believe, is allowed per our development order. It is clearly allowed for the words in the development order and what we negotiated with the neighbors, staff, and the county commission when we did that. We believe the special event should be approved as we ask it to be approved. Thank you very much.
Mary, would you like to say anything else?
He said it all.
Bill, knowing you, that was as brief as I've ever heard you talk. Thank you very much. Anyone else here to speak in favor? I have one other person. Mr. Stammer, where are you?
You should have an email from...
Okay, I'm just saying, you have in support, is that correct, or is that, okay, well, I'm just saying, when I got it, it said that, so I just wanted to make sure. I also have, I want to make sure that that was right. I also have somebody, Mr. Edmund? Yes, and it says you're in support, is that correct? Would you like to speak, sir? Is that no? Okay, then I will read the Wekiva Island Gallery Zero special event will help fund a very special and worthwhile natural area. Please approve this event permit. Okay, that is what he said. Oh, Mary, you do want to say something?
I do.
Okay.
You should have gotten an email from a Steve Demore. He's one of our neighbors. He should have emailed each one of you.
Okay.
In support.
Thank you very much. I've gotten
Several.
emails both in support
Yeah.
and against. Thank you very much. Okay. We do have those that have, and that's why I asked Ms. Damer. Now, I believe that you are the president of the Homeowners Association, is that correct? Before I call you up, is there an order that you would like me to do this? Some people have batting orders. Is there a batting order, or do you want me to just bring it up as it is? Okay, Mr. Stamer, you are up first, and you will have 6 minutes as president of the Homeowners Association. And I think it's Stamer, is it not?
Stamer, but
I'm sorry I said
I've
Stamer.
learned
Please
answered
forgive me.
about anything. I've been married for a long time. My name is Jeff Stamer. I reside at 3669 Watercrest Drive, Longwood. That's the Sweetwater Springs neighborhood, right off of Miami Springs Road, adjacent to Wekiva Island. My family's been there about 27 years, and I'm currently HOA president. Prior to 2019, our residents were a pretty constant feature at these BCC meetings because we were here complaining about the special events being held down at the island. You saw some of the numbers, 750, 800, 900, and it created incredible issues. And I'm not going to drain those issues. I sent you all probably an exceedingly detailed email last week going through all those, and I'm not going to bore you with that again. But the important thing is you guys fixed the problem. I mean, all of a sudden, we stopped showing up at these meetings in 2019 because at the end of 2018, you guys approved a new development order for Wekiva Island. You gave them a 50% increase in the number of customers they could have on a day-in, day-out basis, allowed them to increase their infrastructure. But what you also did is you protected us and the issue we had, which was the special events, by restricting their development, their special events from 2019, consistently, every one of them, to 395, 400. And since then, you haven't seen me. Or you haven't heard from my residents, because it's been quiet. It hasn't been perfect, but it's been incredibly better, a dramatic improvement. My residents are pretty adamant that, you guys have a solution that works. 400 works. They've proven they can handle more than 400. They show those numbers. We couldn't get in and out of our neighborhood, the noise, and so, 400 is a number that it works. They've proven they can't handle more. Let's just stay with it. Why mess with something that's effective? The second thing I'd like to ask you, and it's a clarification, I think, on the noise ordinance. I've had sheriff's deputies in my yard the last year during a special event at the island. And they sit there and shake their head and go, yeah, that's pretty loud. But we can't ask them to turn it down because the way the special event order is written, they're basically given carte blanche unless it specifically says that they're not allowed to exceed the loudness levels. So I know the intention for y'all folks is when you approve a special event like that and they have music, and we don't have a problem with them having the events, but they're 110 feet away from some of the bedrooms where we have school-age children. And at 9 o'clock at night, if they're playing AC/DC at 200 decibels, we can't even have the sheriff go in and ask them to turn it down. You ask if there is a decibel reading report? No, because they will not take one because they say, bluntly, we can't enforce it unless you simply add a single line that says they're still subject to the loudness measures. Again, they can have the music, but 747 landing in your backyard, that's insane, but there's nothing to stop them if you don't put that simple line in. So, folks, I'm just asking for two simple things. Let's hold the number to the 395, which has been proven to work. Let's put a provision in there that they can't play it as loud as they please. And then maybe you won't see me again for another 2 years, and that would probably be a win-win for everyone involved. So, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Stamer. Questions of Mr. Stamer? Any questions?
I just want to clarify one thing. I think I heard the answer. So there were no decimal meters, any sound levels taken by the sheriff?
They would not take one. They said, we can't do anything about it unless it's written into the special.
Just wanted to verify. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, sir.
Jeff, this is not a question, this is just, so, from what I've heard from what you've said, the development order is working to your satisfaction that we've put into place.
When we have events at 400,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, thank you. That's what I meant, in special events. Okay, Mr. John Thornton.
Good morning, Board. John Thornton, 3764 Watercress Drive, private citizen, a very close neighbor to the applicant. What can I say on top of what Jeff said? 2.5 years of peace, of relative peace. I appreciate the good things that the proprietors of Wekiva Island are attempted doing. I actually contacted here Mary personally on an unrelated matter a couple months ago, and I said, thank you for being a good neighbor. I have nothing against them. My motive is to protect the sanctity of the inside of my house, the peace of the general area. This application comes to me as a sort of a rude, surprising shot across the bow, saying, effectively, we're itching to bust out at the seams again, and we're going to try and inch our way to that end. Well, I don't know how to react to that except a bit fearfully. I would like to point out regarding capacity, staff recommendations say that the development order provides a provision that the board can approve an increase in visitor capacity through the approval of a special event permit. Nowhere in this development order does it explicitly give the board that discretion, unlike item J, which gives the board explicit direction to regulate amplified sound during special events, unlike item T, which gives the board special event approval and additional food trucks. Furthermore, item Y states that the items in the development order override any conflict. So if the board has explicit direction from the development order to increase capacity, I would like to know where that's stated. Regarding sound, 26 full hours of amplified sound in a 48-hour period. I mean, that is not music supporting an event. That is a full-blown outdoor musical festival. On a scale, 50 to two-thirds of what Woodstock 1969 was in duration. And that is not an exaggeration. Go look at the schedules if you don't believe me. The duration is outlandish. I want the board to understand that when Wekiva Island is broadcasting sound outdoors, as they were during the paint-out event, it is felt, not only heard, but felt in every square inch of the interior of my structure. There is no concentration or relaxation while that's occurring. Can I endure it for 3 or 4 hours on the night of the paint-out event? Sure. But the proposal that they're asking for here is a full-blown outdoor music festival. Because of its location and its proximity, Wekiva Island is not a suitable venue for outdoor concerts, and it never will be. And the low frequencies, you know, I don't want to go over the science again. You cannot orient bass so that it goes in the direction of the wood. Bass travels radially from the source, is omnidirectional. You need an acoustic scientist to come in here and explain that if you're inclined to believe the amateurish notion that pointing the speakers into the woods is going to fix that problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Miss Jill, and U-L-I-A-N-O?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Giuliano.
Giuliano.
Yes.
Flows off the tongue.
Yes, it
Italian
does.
name. Giuliano.
My name is Jill Giuliano, and I've been a resident of Sweetwater Springs for 19 years. I live at 1044 Bearded Oaks Terrace. We have, as everybody said, we've all gotten along really well for the past couple of years. We finally got our speed bumps, which has drastically helped the speeding and the traffic. I just want to comment, the dates that Mr. Weinog mentioned of the 750, 950 was before the DO when we all made the agreement to cut that back. So those are old numbers and old dates. Again, our neighborhood's been impacted in many ways. Bottom line, I feel like Wekiva Island has a history of not always being upfront with what they want. Per the current DO, there's no walk-ins. I don't know where 750 people are going to park their cars and how they're not going to walk in because they don't have the space to accommodate that. Again, backing up what Jack said, there's a ripple effect. Everybody knows the ripple effect. You have one drop and it spreads everywhere. It doesn't spread in one direction, it goes everywhere. So Wekiva Island is affecting the river, the neighborhoods, all the animals, the traffic, the surrounding roads. We also have Wekiva State Park. And on the weekends, you can't get down Wekiva Springs Road heading towards Apopka or coming from Apopka because the right-hand lane of Wekiva Spring Road is the turn lane to get into the park. Although that's not Wekiva Island, again, it's that ripple effect. It all affects all of us that are trying to get somewhere and do our business and do what we want to do on our weekends. Let me just go through the numbers like Jack was saying. So we have 26 hours of music. We have 3,000 people. We have inadequate parking. The development owner says no walk-ins. Well, people are going to be walking in, and that's against the DO. We have to witness people lugging their stuff up and down the hill. We've had people, fight. There's been arrests on the street. This was all documented before the DO was changed, and it's gotten much better, but I don't want to look forward to going through this again. And if it's permitted again this time, then it's the next time and the next time. So as I was saying about good faith, this was on Facebook last week. They're already advertising the celebration, so I don't know if the decision's already been made, but I feel like this is a little bit premature. If you're going to ask permission to do something, you don't advertise it before. I'd just like to hear more about their plans for parking and police coverage and the noise ordinance. That's basically what our issues are. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions? Any questions? Thank you very much. We also have Miss Barbara Thornton.
Hello, Barbara Thornton, 3764 Watercress Drive, Longwood, Florida, Sweetwater Springs. Bill, the first slide that he put up was a beautiful image of Wekiwa Island, and it is so beautiful. And as the other gentleman spoke earlier about how much we love our springs are in jeopardy anyway. I could talk about that for a long time too, because we have a lot of development, and that's sort of the way life is. But as you know, we don't have anything against Wekiwa Island, and I think they've done some really good things for that area. But I think really, so looking at that picture, if you just put that picture in your mind, what we just saw, it's not up there now. There's one way in, and there's one way out. It's surrounded by community. They're at the very base, southern end tip of this wild and scenic protected area. 5 miles all the way up. Bears. I think I saw a panther the other day, I'm not kidding. A lot of animals. So they have a lot of great programs. We respect the things that they're trying to do to raise money for different events, and we think that's really great. But I think all the things that other people that have brought up today make a lot of sense. I'm not going to repeat everything everybody said. Couldn't do it if I wanted to. But we need to stay with the DO. We went through a lot prior. I was in New York for graduations, Memorial Weekend. I got phone calls and texts, not only from our neighbors, but people on Miami Springs, very concerned. And what's the problem? There was no special event, but it was one way in, one way out, tons of cars lined up. People could not leave our community. They were blocked by cars. So I was getting the texts. And so it's like, that was no special event. That was 395. And there were people walking in that were holding wraps and things like that. So, the problem with the walk-ins, that was one of the biggest problems we had before we ended up fixing the DO. And again, thank you for helping us with that. It was a lot. It was a lot. And now, our voices need to be heard. We need to be understood and respected. I know we don't have a business there in our neighborhood. Bill does, and I believe he wants to do the right thing, and Mary as well. But I think that things have gone really well. Like they said, the DO's been fixed. Let's stay with 395. That area is not a place to have a concert. It's a beautiful area that's under conservation down there. We have one way in and out. Even with Wekiwa Springs, there's a turn lane, so you can still pass around. This way, we can't even get out of our neighborhood, let alone an emergency vehicle get in or anything. So let's please, if they want a special event, it needs to be 395. Amplified sound, it must not happen. And if it does happen for any length of time, it needs to be for a very short duration, like with the paint out. Maybe one evening for a few hours. We'd be fine with that. So please, deny this request. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Those are all the public comment forms that I've received. Is there any other comment forms out there? Mr. or Ms. Weinog, would you like to respond?
If we may.
Yes, you can.
I apologize. Again, thank you very much. And I would agree that the development order has made us better neighbors. And I said, when I came up here the first time, we take it very seriously. We believe in the DO. We want to be good neighbors. We spent a lot of effort and put a lot of effort in making sure that document was fairly well written. And in that document, it allows us 4 special events a year. Now, I don't know if a special event means the same thing that is outlined in the DO. then I don't know why I would be here. If those 4 special events were supposed to be exactly what was in the DO, then it shouldn't even have been in there. It very specifically says we have to come and talk to you. Lots of special events can be handled with just staff, but we have to see the commission, so we're here to see the commission, and it is the commission's will. I would say, you guys know what 3 of those special events are a year, then those will probably be the same forever because we believe in those things. So what is this 4th event going to be? We heard it is not a place for concerts, but we know historically there has been concerts down here. And in fact, if you look at Faith Hill's history, she actually played down at the Wakaiwa Marina many years ago when they had a concert series down there. I'm not saying that this is a concert place every day of the year, but is it maybe that one last thing where we do something special for the community? I don't know. The picture that I did put up there, I should have pointed out, there was a comment that some of the folks live 110 feet from us. That is not the case. That there is a huge planted buffer of natural trees between us and the neighborhood. I would say is probably closer to 1,000 foot to the closest from the river. I know my property is about 500 foot deep, and I'm sure there's still another 500 feet beyond that. So, with all due respect, we will, whatever's the will of the commission is what we'll do. We still believe that the development order was clear. We're allowed for special events, and what does that mean? We would really like there to be amplified sound for this event. We're talking about, 1 event a year. We really hope that you guys will let us do something special. Last thought. We did start advertising because we are celebrating the 4th of July, and we are celebrating Gallery Cerro, which is under construction right now. We are excited about that, so we did start advertising for that. There's no question. The question is, what will it be? What it will be is what you all allow us to do. Thank you very much.
You're going to do 750. You can do 2 or 3 people per car.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Mr. Warnog, if I may.
Mr. Warnock.
Mr. Warnog, can you put up that site plan you talked about, the buffer? I just want to make sure that I understand it.
Yeah, if I could go back.
And then while they're bringing that up, are you going to be providing fireworks?
No, sir.
Okay.
So there is normally fireworks, not at our property, but down in that area on the 4th of July.
No fireworks on your property?
We do not do fireworks down there, no, sir.
Okay.
If you remember, I'm an environmental guy.
People may not understand this, but the issue with fireworks for me is all those beautiful colors are chemicals, and when those chemicals are ignited, all those chemicals now go into the water, and I think that that's a whole different issue altogether.
Yeah, no, I would not ask for that.
Okay, that's why I'm asking.
Other questions?
So can you point out the buffer that you were talking about?
Yes, so as I said, my property is about 500 feet deep from the river. And then you can see where the next house is, the closest house up. Mary's got a good pointer. Mary's got a good pointer.
Those crutches do come in handy after all.
So, yeah, there's absolutely, there's absolutely no question that we will do our best to manage that and make sure the noise is pointed away. And I will say, pointing the noise away, I would disagree. Does make sure that noise is not directed towards the neighborhood. It helps drop the decibel levels significantly. The other thing is, I would say the drum kits are the worst thing, and I understand that, and I heard that, so we've asked, and we have actually purchased, it cost me about, it doesn't matter what it costs.
No.
But we've purchased a sound guard for the drums, so they're actually going to build a housing around the drum kits, and they're going to mic the drums so that we'll be able to control that low boom, 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 because we were worried about that.
Just like fireworks.
No fireworks. Thank you.
When you asked about the 750, I mean, if you had 2.7 people per car, you're at like almost 750.
Actually, more
So-
than 750.
Other questions? Thank you very much.
I do have a question for the county attorney, if I may.
Yes, okay. Well, I was going to open it up to the commission after we had...
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. Any other questions for anyone? Okay, go ahead. Let's go to,
Mr.
board
Chiplock.
discussion and questions.
I heard from several of the residents talked about that there was no walk-ins allowed under the DO. I've looked at the DO that's presented to us that's in front of us, and under item E, it says lot full notice, and basically said that once the lot is full, there's no walk-ins. But I don't see anywhere else in the DO that says they don't allow walk-ins. Can someone point out in the DO that it doesn't allow walk-ins unless it's a lot full?
That, your interpretation is correct.
So prior to the lot being full, people are allowed to walk there?
Yes.
Okay.
But once the lot is full, admission into the facility itself is stopped until there is
I
access.
just want to be clear.
Yes.
And that is put down on S, at the end, the bottom of S, says that. Commissioner Zimbauer, then Commissioner Lockhart.
So it seems to me, and I happen to have been around on the Planning and Zoning Commission at the time this was all going on, and some of you were on this board and discussing this, and I know there was a lot of interaction between the community, the Weinogs, the board, the attorneys, trying to find a path, and I understand it went back and forth, and things were discussed, and things were presented, carried back and forth to the thing. And the reason I asked the question earlier about the sound levels, I've purposely, unannounced, attended some of these, quote, special events to see for myself what this sound was, on-site as well as going up Miami Springs. And the reason I asked the question is it actually even rising to the level of our sound ordinance? It sounds like to me there was no measurements, we don't really know, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know that it does. Can you hear noise? Absolutely you can. Can you hear certain things? Yes, you can. But whether it rises to that level, I don't know, and that's why I inquired earlier is, do we actually have a decibel level? I also know the Weinogs have been very proactive. On one occasion while I was on the island, there were some individuals that were honking one of these train horns. I witnessed Ms. Weinog immediately go, get the individual and ask him to leave immediately. So I think what it really boils down to is an interpretation of special event. We've heard contemplations by the applicant, what is a special event? We know what a special event is. What was the intent of the agreement? Arguably, the citizens knew that there was going to be 4 special events allocated or allowed. I don't know that I see anything, and I'll be looking to the county attorney for opinion, anywhere in this DO that says that a special event is likewise limited to 395. Is that our interpretation, or is that not?
The development order limits the occupation of the premises to the 395. The special event permit is a tool to deviate from the established regulations, be it the standards that are contained specifically in the DO, or whether there are other standards in our codes in general.
So that would include deviating from the DO times of operation?
Correct.
Deviating from the county's noise ordinance?
Correct.
Deviating from the stated DO capacity level?
Yes, and all of those are listed on page 351 in your agenda package.
So basically deviation from all the terms of the DO under the special event?
Yes.
And it's also true, we heard some reference given, that any entity can ask for a special event permit.
That is correct.
And that can be granted.
Yes.
And, but we're not going to have any fireworks, and there's nothing in the DO that says you can or cannot have fireworks.
Again, fireworks in general are It's not included in the request for the special events permit, and it's not included in their DO, so they would have no legal right to do the fireworks at the property.
Understood. And I think we heard they're not going to have fireworks.
Right.
Although I think we know because at the time, there's going to be plenty of fireworks going on in the surrounding areas. Okay, I just wanted to make sure what we were contemplating, a special event, what that really meant. Thank you.
Commissioner Lockhart.
I think it's important to reiterate that all of the emails that I received from neighbors who were opposing this particular request and the capacity limits all said that they appreciated Wekiva Island and the efforts that they've made, and that they enjoy actually going, many of them, and being on the island. So I feel like we were in such a good place where it seemed like relationships were certainly on the mend, and I think they're still there, but this is definitely a stress to that. I recall being on this board when we were debating parking spaces, and there was a lot of discussion about that, and I remember, I think, Commissioner Constantine even asking the Wynogs, is $3.95, like, is that it, like, are we good with this? There was even an effort on your part to make sure that there was a recognition and an acknowledgement that, no, we're good with this number. This is a good number for us, and there wasn't any need to go over that number that was foreseeable. I struggle with the fact that under T, which is special events, it says the total number of special events is to be 4 events, not to exceed total of 60 days in a calendar year, as approved by the board. Additional food trucks will be permitted during special events, as approved by the board. If under special events, the intention was to have there be other things that could be modified, I don't know why we wouldn't have added that if we added food trucks. Why wouldn't we have said any of the other, capacity? The only other place that I see in the development order that talks about an exception from the board is regarding amplified sound under J. No outdoor amplified sound except during special events as approved by the board. I don't see where capacity is noted as being, I understand what I've heard from the county attorney, that that's the assumption, that basically a special event allows everything to be back on the table, but it seems like we identified some things in the development order as being able to be modified, but capacity certainly wasn't one of them, and capacity is the thing that I remember us talking about ad nauseum when this was being approved. So I guess I kind of want to know from our staff if their recommendation is denial, or is what their recommendation is with the limit in the number of occupants. Why is that? Why is that their recommendation? Would someone, maybe Rebecca or Mary, I'm not sure who wants to tackle that.
Rebecca, would you like to answer that?
I'd love to hear the rationale for why staff is not recommending exceeding the 395.
For the record, Rebecca Hammack, Development Services Director. Since the development order was amended, and we have been recommending the 395 consistent with the request of the applicant, and since then, we haven't had any issues. We haven't had very many complaints, and so we feel like that's an appropriate number. So that's the consistent number that we've been recommending for the maximum for the special events. And just to clarify, the maximum capacity at Wekiva Island is not based on parking spaces. It was based on the buildings and the previous use of the property.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Other comments before I have comment? Commissioner Zimbauer, and then Commissioner Delory.
So the previous special events, and staff can weigh in on this, the paint out and so forth, if you can give us a follow-up on what the capacity was allowed to be then. On the food trucks, I know the food truck was a big issue. That was a separate issue that was being banded back and forth between the citizens and the Wynogs, and it was a big sticking point. I think that's why it probably got stuck in, as my recollection, into item J of the development order. I think the citizens initially didn't want a food truck at all, and back and forth, and I think that was negotiated in there.
I can.
Go
So do we have a number on the?
I can speak to that. Commissioner Zembauer is correct. The food truck was a sticking point when we renegotiated the development order. I will remind you that this is in the Wekiva River Protection Area, and commercial uses are prohibited. This had some legal non-conforming uses on the site, and also has a recreation element. Recreational uses are permitted in the Wekiva River Protection Area. So this development order, this was actually the first project I worked on when I came to work for Seminole County, so on the original development order. This was sort of an effort to kind of recognize the legal non-conforming uses that were still on the site, as well as the recreational element of it. And there was a concern with the food truck because there was some concern about expansion of commercial uses on the site. So that's why they were specifically addressed under the special exception as something that could be, they were limited to one food truck, and we considered that part of the legal non-conforming use, but that's why they were specifically addressed under the special event paragraph in that. So it was one of the significant issues when we were renegotiating the development order.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Delory and then Commissioner Hurd.
Thank you. And I appreciate the county manager talking about the special event aspect of the food truck, because that's the way I remember it as well, because the food truck, I believe that we spoke about that for a good hour plus on that one particular item. And when we talked about special events, allowing them to have X amount of special events per year, we knew that during those times that they'd be going over or requesting to go over the DO, and we wanted to make sure that the food trucks was limited even during the special event. So I appreciate the county manager bringing that to our attention. And looking at what the county staff has recommended at $395, that's basically, if you look at the total number of parking spaces, it's 1.5 people per car, 1.45 people per car. If you look at the other number that is in the application, that is item number 3, how they got to the 445, that's 2 people per car. If you look at what they're requesting, which is 750, that's 2.76 people per car. None of that is, I think, out of line. And I think it's important that this is a special event. And the clear definition of a special event, it happens during a finite period of time. And being that this is the 4th of July, even after this thing is shut down, whatever time it is that we do agree to, there's going to be noise due to fireworks, which is not going to be controlled, and it's not going to be on this property, as the applicant stated, but it'll be in other neighborhoods. I really think that we should be looking at what's realistic when it comes to how many people per car. 1.45 people per car, I don't think is a realistic number. Is it 2.5? Is it 2.7? Is it 2.0? I think that's the dialogue that we should be talking about. What is realistic? Because people do carpool. And you're going to see more and more people doing that. It also says in their DO, until it's at capacity, people are allowed to walk in, and that walk-ins are allowable per their DO up until the capacity of the parking lot, anticipating that people are going to carpool.
Commissioner Hurd?
I appreciate the ability to sit back and listen to all of the discussion of the folks that were here during the time this was all being decided. Coming in with a fresh set of eyes to this, I read the DO differently, albeit I'll disclaim that I'm not a lawyer. And when we put something in the DO that specifically calls out for a special event what can be added, but don't mention something else, it seems to me that the number exceeding the number of the capacity for regular events was contemplated not to change. And so then listening to the discussion, perhaps it was contemplated to change. What I would tell you is that the number of parking spaces is less important to me than the impact of traffic in and out of there for that number of days with this many people for a consistent event. And so I'm not concerned by the sound. I'm not concerned because I think there's mitigation that's done. I don't know what mitigation you can provide to the neighbors that are trying to ride on these roads when we're pumping 750 people in and out of there, because they don't stay there the whole time, so the traffic flow over those several days. So I am most anxious to hear what the district commissioner has to say, but at least want to share with you all that my concern is for the lifestyle of the people that are the neighbors. And while it may need to go up, I don't know about 750.
All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Can we ask staff to tell us what their thoughts on traffic management would be?
You can. That's part of the questions.
Can we have staff address that?
Mary, you can answer there, or Rebecca, if you want to. First of all, I see
Traffic
people.
management, well, they do have to post a sign when the lot is full, and they have done the speed bumps. They could hire extra deputies to direct traffic.
Ms. Hammack, did you want to add anything, please?
Only to add that Mary is correct. Once the site is at capacity at 395, then the walk-ins are no longer allowed. So it's not if the parking lot is full, it's actually if they're at capacity. The agreement was that they were supposed to have someone at the entrance with a clicker, and as each person goes in, they would count the number of attendees. So walk-ins are permitted, and they're supposed to post a lot full at the intersection of Miami Springs and Wekiva, saying that the lot is full so that people hopefully wouldn't go down the road any further. And then also it does say that they can have sheriff's deputies to help manage traffic, but I do not believe that they're proposing, I don't want to
They're
misstate.
proposing at
Yeah.
least 2 deputies. They always have between 2 and 4 deputies for each event.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Ms. Porter, are those for this event, or this item? Give that to, please, could we bring that down here? Ladies and gentlemen, I see hands raising as we start talking here. That's why I mentioned to everybody if anyone else, and no one raised their hands or anything like that, the public comment period is over. So now we were asking, then we get rebuttal from the applicant, then we get the staff and any questions, which commissioners can ask individual questions. So I don't want you to think that it's not that we, don't want to hear from you, but we did give the opportunity for people to fill out these forms. I'm going to give some leeway here because some people may not have known, but I do have 2 people that have put public comments in the green sheets, and therefore I think it's appropriate that we at least read them. And so Ms. Candace Niznik and Michael of the same name. Niznik. I gave a public comment form. I've been a Seminole County retired teacher for 20 years. Our underlying concern, common denominator for all the decisions was always safety. Every weekend, cars are backed up starting at 6:30 a.m., blocking most driveways. Fire and rescue trucks are regularly called on a simple 2-lane road. This is not a safe environment for us or our neighbors or our community. And then a Deanna Houston wrote, keep at 395 and put car on, I'm sorry, I can't read that. It is time to save the Wekiva everywhere, including not approving more construction. My family has been here over 100 years, and it has been devastating to see our land and water disappear. Thank you, Ms. Houston.
Mr. Chairman, under discussion, I know the staff hinted around the applicant having either 2 or 4, and about the traffic management. I'd like to hear from the applicant to hear what their plans are.
There's a question of the applicant for questions on traffic. Mr. Weinog?
Thank you, Bill Weinog. It is typical for us to have 2 deputy sheriffs on site during the weekends. We are planning on doing that. In addition, we have asked for 2 additional deputy sheriffs to do parking and road management. So our plan is to have deputies out there with our staff, and we actually have staff that helps manage the road. And let me mention that as far as traffic control, I think we do a really good job. We definitely try. We put in a huge effort in trying to manage the traffic on the road. There is no question that people have learned we're popular, so they are lining up early. We've had many meetings internally to this about how we could solve that for the neighbors. However, our development order is very specific, and we know we have to work within our development order, so we do not open before 8, and darn it all, people line up. Totally different issue. But we'd be willing to work with the neighbors if we're able to open our parking lot early, not our venue, but to get people off the road. But right now, our development order doesn't allow that. So I hope that answered your question, sir.
It did.
Chairman?
Ms. Weinog, did you want to add anything to that? Okay, thank you.
I don't believe they start lining up at 6:30. I've seen them line up as early as 6:45 because I look at the cameras.
Yes, Ms. Herr. Commissioner Herr.
Question for the applicant. Why the higher number for this event and not the previous events under the new development order?
I think we always wanted additional numbers, and we always felt, we knew going into the development order what the number meant. The number was 750. And we always wanted to have that number to make it a real event. They're fundraising events. Because they're fundraising events, we just, staff said no, 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 and so we kind of just went along with it, and we're saying, okay, at some point in time, we probably want to resolve this and understand what it is. I agree. I wish it was written in the development order. We did a good job writing everything into it. If it was written in there, it would be a lot easier. So not that I want to go back and change the development order unless it's easy. It's a painful process. But I think that's what we're looking for from the commission, is to know what that number is, so that we could plan accordingly. So hopefully that answered your question.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is it my turn?
Please.
Thank you, guys. All right. I patiently wanted to listen to the commission, the members, certainly in their feelings after listening to the staff, the applicant, and the homeowners in the immediate area. And as I suspected, I see we're all over the place here on this one. So let me just give a little bit of background, and please forgive me. I won't take too long, but when we first started this idea with the development order and the new development that Mr. and Ms. Weinog wanted to do, there was a lot of apprehension in the community. And so I took it upon myself as the district commissioner to bring in everyone into my office and have basically a sit-down. And that sit-down lasted about 4 hours. And in that sit-down, I thought that we had come up with an agreement that, quite frankly, Mrs. Weinog did not like, and some of the applicants did not, some of the citizens did not like, but it was a give and take, and both sides felt comfortable. Then, excuse me, Mr. Chipoff, then attorneys got involved. And those attorneys turned everything around. And both sides then fell to specifically the homeowners that they were getting the raw end of the deal. So it became a very contentious issue again. The funny part about it is when we finished the development order, other than adding the speed cushions, everything else was pretty much the same as what came out of my office that day. And since that time, again, a good agreement, as all of you know, it means that both sides didn't get what they all wanted, and both sides were, at the same time, got some things. And that's why I asked Mr. Stamer, because the fact of the matter is, the development order has worked. It's worked. For 2 years, we haven't had people come in here and concern themselves. In fact, Ms. Weinog has come in here and she's asked for things, and everybody smiled and everybody said yes. And other than a few complaints, specific mostly to getting the speed bumps in, everything has been pretty comfortable. There has been some concerns about some noise from time to time, and I have seen some of the 650, 658, 702 lines in the morning. But for the most part, in a very contentious situation, the two sides have been able to coexist. And in fact, many times when we get these emails, they say, although they're good neighbors, but. And that is something that's unique in this. I will say that when we're talking about this, I recall that one of the neighbors actually during the campaign to another event called me corrupt in the agreement of the DO. So to hear that now the neighbors feel that the DO was fair, that's nice to know. There was no corruption in making this deal. As I said, both the Weinogs and the neighbors were disappointed that they didn't get everything that they wanted. So here we are today. I never thought in a special event, to add to this conversation, that 395 was the bottom line. It is on most occasions. It should be on most occasions, but I also feel that there was a little give and take. It wasn't specified no, that you cannot do it, so it was implied, in my opinion, and being one that was very instrumental in putting together the development order, I always felt that there was the opportunity to give, but not twice as much. Certainly, far from twice as much. I am, if I was listening to the commissioners and their varying points of contention, I am willing to give the hours of addition, because it's really only a couple of hours on July 4th. And as Commissioner DeLore said, there's going to be a lot of noise. I don't know where the fireworks came into place, because I would be vehemently against that, because it's such an environmentally important area that we don't, and so they've never even considered it, so I don't even know why we were talking about it. But, I can see an adding of 2 hours during July 4th, because it is a special occasion. And I could see, again, once it's filled to capacity, no walk-ins, which is what it was contemplated, that there would not be walk-ins after it was filled. So that would stay in place. And I could see that the real point of contention here is the number. And I have no, formula for what the number should be, other than I don't think it should be twice as much. And so what I'm going to suggest is that because it's a special event and it's because it's the July 4th weekend, that we add 100, and then it'd be 495. And that's incremental, see if it works for this particular occasion. I do recall that the others have been 395 and that has worked. and no one has complained about the $395 for the other special events. I'm willing to test the $495 with a clicker at the front, because I don't believe that that has been done on all these occasions, to verify that there was 400, or that there would be that number. So that is my motion. That is not a motion. That is my suggestion. I would ask that if none of you, I think, have that exact number or whatever in mind, but I think that's a good compromise, and one that both the owners and the citizens can live with. Commissioner Lockhart.
So, just thinking through that, it's the first time we've heard that possibility. I do have a concern about the amplification, to the degree that we have all heard other situations in this community where it's not just decibel levels, that there is an issue with bass. And we know that you can't direct bass. And for some reason, some houses feel that more than others. You all know my mother lives next door. We have a nearby neighbor who has a car that plays heavy bass. I don't feel it in my house, but boy, she feels it in hers, and we live next door to one another. It may be her sensitivities. It may be that there's water running underground. I don't know, but something is definitely different between her house and mine. And I've been in situations where you cannot think straight in your own home when the walls are rattling. So if we're not concerned as much with the decibel levels, is there a way that we can put a limitation so that if a deputy does have to go out and they can feel and see that the windows are rattling, that there could be an adjustment made at that point in time to allow that deputy to ask them to modify whatever is causing that? I'm a little concerned that just giving them carte blanche with no restriction could make for a very miserable weekend for these folks.
Is
that a possibility?
I'm looking at you, County Manager, to answer that question, yeah.
I think that it's an excellent point. I'm not sure how to give the deputy guidance on how to measure that. I don't, number one, I don't know how you measure bass, so that I'm the wrong person to ask on that. But I don't know. I think what the sheriff's office, and I don't speak for them, but what we have heard from them in the past is they want to know when they're violating the regulation and when they're not, and how do we measure that? And I don't know how, outside of the standards we already have in the noise ordinance, how you would measure that. So I think I agree with your point. I'm just not sure how we implement that.
If I can just say something, common sense says to me that, if a person hears it, the deputy goes down, hears it, feels that it is something that if they could go to Wekiwa Island and ask them to keep it down, it seems like it's a very simple neighborly type of thing to do, and I understand that there's not always the trust there, but there has been lately. Mr. Weinog, do you have any suggestions on that?
Okay.
You don't have any suggestions on that, okay. Commissioner Zimbauer.
Thank you very much. The noise obviously is a concern. I think we've heard it from the residents. We've heard it from a lot of people in our community, as Commissioner Lockhart has pointed out. And some of the problem becomes, and why we had to go to the expense with our noise ordinance is, not everybody in this room hears on the same level and are more sensitive to different types of noise. And so that's why it makes it so subjective. What I would like some consideration and thought from the applicant is, with the district commissioner proposing $495 for just a matter of ease of keeping track of, I can support that. I think a 500, just a flat 500, 5 more people, so it's easier to track. Either way is fine with me. But Mr. Weinog, so do you believe it's feasible, and I understand this is an expense when I ask for this, do you believe you could do some sound recordings and publish that and make that available, and maybe even invite some of the neighbors to observe those sound numbers, so we actually understand where are we at? I mean, again, we're back to this contemplation, what's a special event? We have the DO that sets aside certain things. So notwithstanding that, something outside of that would be special. And we're asking for a special request permit. Then we have the noise part of this. It would be very nice, and that's why I asked the question very early on, was the noise level violating our ordinance? Is that something you would be willing to undertake? I don't know if you can pull it off in time for this event, but is that something you would be willing to, and again, as a businessman myself, I'm not looking to lay additional costs on you, but in light of what we're hearing from the public and the questions that are outstanding, is that something you would consider doing?
We absolutely could take sound measurements at our property. We could actually take sound measurement, I will try to find a consultant to do it. Take sound measurements maybe at the closest home as well, in their yard, if they will allow that. And we could create a trend for the weekend, and then that could go into the record if you wanted it to, and then we could use that for future reference.
Sure. And my thought, so my fellow commissioners understand, this is going to continue to be an issue. We can argue that Wekiva Fish Camp was there many years ago before any of these houses were ever developed and before anybody ever moved there. And obviously, it was a place for nefarious activity to take place. It was eventually a rundown, very nasty situation. The Winehogs have come in, they've invested, they've fixed it up, they've made it available to the community. We've all heard from the neighbors as well as in the Winehogs. They've tried to be good neighbors. Commissioner Constantine, as district commissioner several years ago, as he indicated, sat down with all the parties, got everybody, thought everybody was on board. Now we have a DO, now we're asking for a special permit, but here we are again. And unless we find some way to identify, I think, what is a special event, and should this applicant be treated any different than any other applicant who's coming in and asking for a special event? Whether that is something that one of us want to throw a fundraiser or something and have a band there and do all that. Whether it's one of another business in the community who wants to do something. Are we treating this individual different than we would treat other people? And so I would support the $495, maybe a $500. But I'd really like to see some commitment to get a sound level for nothing more than trying to bring peace to this community once and for all when these special events are requested. So we have some numbers to hang our hat on.
Mr. Chairman, can I continue the conversation that Commissioner Zimbow was discussing?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Weinog, you mentioned in your presentation that you were going to provide a bass box for the drum.
Yeah, I didn't know what it was called, but yes, sir.
I'm just repeating what you said.
Yeah, it's a box that goes around the drum to stop the low boom, 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 and then they mic it, and then they can control the volume of the bass coming from the drum, because we know that's the worst thing.
The reason why I'm asking is, are there different levels of a bass box that you can actually rent or install?
I do not know that answer, sir.
Okay. I think that could be potentially a part of a solution, if they're willing to, and I think they said that under their own presentation, that they were going to put a bass box in around the drums itself to control the bass. But I also would encourage the property owner to follow what the conversation is with Mr. Commissioner Zimbauer discussed. I think that would be most appropriate. The only other thing that I would say, and just a friendly amendment, and I'm not going to make a motion, but I don't know if 475 is a decent number, 500, but I was looking at 2 people per vehicle as the staff recommended, additional approval that they had, because they have 1 through 5. And if you do 2 people per car, that's 542, just information. Because if you do 495, it's, I don't know, didn't do the math, but it's less than 2 people per car.
Can I say something?
I'm sorry.
They're going to complain no matter what. We have a special event permit for our paint out every year, and this year they called, and they know it's coming. So.
I understand. I'm just trying to, your husband talked about a base box, and that's the only reason I'm bringing it up.
All right, so we have a base box, we're getting very specific here, four police officers. I've recommended 495. We've had, like I said, I did that because I heard some people that wanted less, some people wanted more. I was trying to find a sound number. So that's where we are right now. Commissioner Hurd, then Commissioner Lockhart.
I think we're also at a consultant with sound readings for the closest home, and I would add the closest home in every direction, because the sound throws off differently. So let's seal up the hole once and for all.
Good news is, there's no homes.
I get it.
Certain one direction.
I get it.
Okay, Commissioner Lockhart.
I think, I heard the applicant say, that you, in fact, were trying to find where your sweet spot is as well, and that this application is kind of your attempt to feel the board out to see how far above the 395 we'd be willing to go. That wasn't lost on me. I am not as comfortable with going above the 395, but I'm certainly more comfortable with 495 than I am 750. I think it is imperative to Commissioner Zembauer's point that we figure out once and for all what the sound issue is. And before I would make any motion to approve this above the 395, I would want a commitment that that sound study and an agreement with the neighbors occur prior to this event. And I don't know if that's reasonable or not. So I'll make a motion, and then we'll see what happens. Is that okay?
Yep.
All right. So my motion is for the Wekiva Island special event permit for 495 individuals with an agreed-upon sound decibel level measurement taking place prior to the start of the event on July 2nd, and all of the other staff considerations that they recommended being in place except for the capacity and the sound study.
And the clicker.
And the clicker. And the 4 deputies.
Is there a second?
Let me make sure I'm clear on that. The only thing I would like to add as a friendly amendment is certified sound study by the certified expert. I don't want just some yahoos going out with sound meters that aren't properly trained to do that.
Is that acceptable?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, that's part of the emotion. Is there a second?
I have a question.
Okay,
Just
do
further
we have a
clar-
second on, okay.
Well,
go.
before I
Okay,
second,
go ahead,
I would like
Commissioner.
to clarify, your sound measure was prior to the event. The prior discussion was sound measure during the event. Are you asking for both?
Yes. Well, yes, because we need to know before the event what the level is. And so if that means bringing in that drum kit or putting up those speakers or whatever it is, I'm not sure if this, what your plans are. But I think we keep having this situation, and the permit applications don't come to us with enough advance time before the event to really be able to dig into this. So now we're sort of at the 11th hour. July 2nd is literally around the corner, and I'm concerned that if we give this permit without having the parameters in place ahead of time, we're going to be behind the dog wagging the tail again.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner.
One of my issues is that you're a couple of weeks away, maybe 2 weeks away from 4th of July to actually count up the days, but I don't know how you bring an acoustical engineer in between now and then to do all this. I don't see it.
Well,
We don't have to give the permit for the amplified sound.
Commissioner Zimbauer?
as part of that, and so I have done sound testing. I would suggest as part of Commissioner Lockhart's motion, if she would entertain that to be done at noon, 5, 8, and 11, for those sound levels to be taken
During the event.
during the event.
I mean, I'm open to that. I don't know how
I'm just-
reasonable that is.
No, I'm just trying to catch.
Right.
There is excuse me for interrupting, there is as part of the DO, there was an agreement that there would be a liaison between Wekiva Island and the neighborhood. I think, Jeff, you are the liaison. Mary Sue, I think you are the liaison. How about we let them make that decision?
That's a good point, but one other thought we might want to think. This may be good practice for our sheriff deputies if we...
For the new news ordinance? Okay, but what I'm saying is, let's specifically on this, the hours are great. I think Commissioner Lockhart is trying to also, certainly help with the situation. But as far as the noise levels, I don't know how we test it prior to.
I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, prior to, because I don't know if they have any amplified sounds they're not supposed to prior to this event. So the fact of the matter is, Mr. Stamer, would you be willing to get with Ms. Lockhart and Ms. Lockhart, Mary Sue, and try to come up with some agreement on that?
I'm kind of at a loss of what that agreement would be.
Okay, we're talking about sound. Okay, I'm just asking, you need to come up here if you're going to get on the record, but I'm trying to move this forward, okay? I'm trying to get this.
Could you get a representative? It might not be.
Okay, a representative. All right, so we can include that as part of the motion? We're going to have to.
Okay, let me try this again.
Can you start from the beginning again?
Yeah. Let me restate this and see if I'm going to accurately be able to capture what we're thinking about here.
Sure.
So 495 as the capacity limit with the representative from the neighborhood and the representative from Wekiva Island meeting at pre-specified times throughout the event at pre-specified locations. I don't know exactly where those would be, to listen to the sound together and determine, perhaps with one of the 4 deputies present, whether or not the noise is reasonable. And we'll measure that at those moments with the certified acoustic appropriate professional and use that as a baseline for moving forward for any other special event permits.
4 sheriffs.
4 deputies and a clerk.
Yeah, the 4 Feel free to reach out to my private office. I can probably get you a list of 10, 15, 20, many of which can react in a reasonable time. But I'm not against using the sheriff's deputies who are now trained in our ordinance, and I would have no problem supporting
that they are the person who is certified that goes out, meets with the individuals. It would not be a cost on the YNOGs. It would be a benefit to the community and something we could hang our hat on in understanding what that noise level would be. Of course, we'd have to coordinate that with the sheriff. I would suspect the sheriff, not speaking for him, would likely agree with that.
I think one of the four, I think the officers that are there are being paid by Wekiva Island.
No, I'm talking about a different officer.
Oh, you're talking about different than the four officers that are there already?
So it's my understanding the sheriff's office has specific individuals who are trained in testing for the sound attenuation for the ordinance.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to ask the county attorney, are we putting an unfair burden on this applicant?
The nature of the sound measurement is not punitive in this particular situation.
Okay.
You're not using it as a penalty against them. You're using it to gather information for future events and for how you're going to react with a request for sound amplification in the future. So I would say that if the applicant is willing and concedes to the condition, that you're on good grounds.
If they are willing to do it?
Yes.
It's part of the motion.
I understand that, but we have not yet heard from the applicant that they're willing to do this.
Oh, I thought I did.
He says yes.
He said yes.
He's shaking his head yes. Okay, so everyone's clear on this. The applicant and the citizens. There's a couple of tests going on here. We're not trying to change the DO, but we are looking at the development order for special events, and we're saying, okay, we're looking for a sweet spot. We're trying 495. We're looking for the sweet spot when it comes to the sound. We're asking the citizens and the applicant to get together. Homeowners Association, just shake your head if that's okay. Okay. So I think we all understand the parameters of this motion. Is there any further discussion or questions? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Passes 4-1. Thank you very much. Okay, County Manager, do you have anything on your briefings?
We do. We have a presentation. I have a couple of small things, but the item that you have on the agenda is a presentation that is an update on the East Lake Mary Boulevard study.
Okay. And that's what you want me to go, before you go to anything else?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's item number
Then
20.
Mr. David Nelson of Renaissance Planning will provide an update on East Lake Mary Boulevard Small Area Study. Mr. Nelson.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Ms. Guillet, Mr. Chipak. Thank you for the opportunity to present this update to you today. My name is David Nelson. I'm a project manager with Renaissance Planning Group, and we are working with Planning Department staff on this project, the East Lake Mary Boulevard Small Area Study. You may recall I came to you at the start of this project and gave you just a quick overview of what we were going to be doing. And this is an update on our progress on the project. And really what I would like is we took your guidance that you gave us at the start. We've done a number of community surveys. We've met with people one-on-one. We've met with groups. We've had 2 community workshops. And we're at the point where we've put together a palette of preliminary recommendations. And I'd like to quickly present those to you today and then get your feedback, your input, your guidance. And that's what's going to take us to the last step of the project, which will be finalizing the recommendations and holding a last community workshop and then handing this, our report off to staff. So if you recall, the study area for this project is East Lake Mary Boulevard from Mellonville to SR 46, basically from the airport property down to the environmental areas of the lake. And it has parcels, kind of mixed in both Seminole County and the city of Sanford, depending on what people have annexed for utilities. So there's a very interwoven between the two. And the land use mix has a variety from open agricultural fields, underutilized parcels, to residential and commercial uses. And what the guidance we've taken from the small area study is really that this is an aspirational community plan, and that we want to look at what the residents, what the businesses of this area see their vision for the future, for all aspects of the transportation system, of the land use, of sustainability, and things like that. And Seminole County first came to us with this project as a priority for a number of reasons. One, there's potential expansion of the airport as it gets busier with both passengers and freight. There have been annexation requests into the city of Sanford, and then there have been a number of different proposals for residential development. So what we're doing is providing this document, like I mentioned, for county staff to use moving forward as different proposals come in, so they can look at the long-term vision for this area. So the vision for this area, we created a simple diagram to start with that really looked at, what are the synergies, what are the connections here. We looked at the blue lines on this, look at the main regional transportation coming through this area. And then we've got the red line, which is the flow of traffic around the airport and its facilities. The green are bike ped networks and the residential areas. And then we've got these little racquetball circles in there that are potential economic development nodes. And so we started with this as really just to look at synergies, to look at connections, and to summarize the development potential for this area. And it gave us a good framework to start with. From that, we created a vision map, a vision statement. I'm not going to read this very wordy vision statement, but what we're really saying is that we need to balance in the transportation, regional versus local, again, in land use, preservation of existing character of neighborhoods versus new development, development in general versus the environmental aspects and sustainability. And what all this is about is quality of life. We want to make sure that this area that has so many distinctive features in it maintains the quality of life for the residents in this area. And what I'd like to do now is go through each of these development nodes that we identified and the options that we're looking at for development moving forward. And this is going to be the guts of where our recommendations come from. And what we're looking at really is, like I said, the character areas. What's the site? What's the setting? What's the context? What's the scale? And when we start looking at the social aspects, the economic aspects, the environmental aspects, and we put these all together, we come up with that sweet spot of sustainable development that I think balances those needs that I talked about in the vision statement. So we came up with a concept map that outlines the different areas I'm going to talk about, but our recommendations are going to be general on this because we're not applicants coming in for proposals here, and we realize that this plan is going to change over time with different economic conditions, when you look at public versus private needs, when you look at how money is spent, how policies are. So we're looking at overarching guidance with this as opposed to specific site recommendations. So the first area I'd like to talk about is the Silver Lake East Lake Mary Boulevard Frontage District. And do I have a... I don't see it. Anyway, this is the area between Mellonville and Ohio, south of Silver Lake, fronting East Lake Mary Boulevard. And the options that we've come up as we've dealt with the community meetings, as we've talked with people, the priority land use options for this district include single family, more towards the style of suburban estates, single family, low density residential, or some sort of light, clean industrial use. And the potential strategies for this development node The JPA specifies that there could be some target industries consistent with the Seminole Way initiative that may be considered in this area if it's compatible with the existing development. And what we're recommending is the single-family detached up to 3 units per acre max, single-family attached up to 6 units per acre. We're going to recommend operational improvements at the Mellonville Avenue, East Lake Mary Boulevard intersection. And this is really, for this intersection, it's redesignating the lanes. As you can see in this picture, the left lane is left turn only, the right lane is straight and through. We think there's benefit to making the left lane on this the straight and left, with the right lane being right only, that will help facilitate the flow of traffic.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask the presenter, you have this as labeled as A, but on our plan you go 1 through 10. So is this 10 that we're talking about, or?
Where do I have 1 through 10 on?
This sheet right here. I'm just trying to follow along.
No, don't follow on that. This was just the preliminary vision. Once we got out of that from the 1 through 10.
I'm on page 12, but
yes,
you got A.
Go with the alpha for this, for area A when we refer to it. That'll be easier than spewing out the whole name. So thank you for that comment. So the last recommendation on this is we're recommending buffers in this area to the lake, to environmental areas, to existing development. I have walked this area, I have boated this area, I have witnessed eagles and hawks in this area. There's a wildlife corridor where big cats, bears, alligators, deer come through here. Silver Lake is pristine condition, great clarity and water quality. So we feel that whatever comes into this area, there needs to be adequate buffers for the wildlife, for the lake, that's going to help preserve that existing character that's in the area now. So we're now going to move to Area B, which is the Silver Lake Residential District. And this covers between Mellonville, Ohio, and Onora. It pretty much covers everything except that south area of the lake that we talked about. And this is the established residential area of what's called the Lakes District. And it's got the large mature canopies, the larger lots, the lake frontage. And so our priority land use options in this district are single-family with the suburban estates or single-family low-density residential. Development strategies in this area, we think it's imperative that new development be compatible with the quality and the character of the existing single-family neighborhoods. We're recommending single-family detached up to 2 units per acre. We do recognize that in the JPA, they talk about the land south of Ohio Avenue, that one day that could become a transitional area that slides into airport expansion. If you look at the future land use map, you've got pretty much AIC all around Golden Lake, and then when you get to the southwest corner of Ohio, you're into the residential area. So we recognize that, and the JPA recognized that this area, could transition at some point in the future. We recognize that there are lots of other areas that the airport may prioritize, but that this area could become a transitional area in the future. And so we wanted to put that in there specifically so that we could say, recommend that if it does become, if the future land use changes on that those impacts to the existing neighborhoods to the west are minimized, both visually and with buffers.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner?
So you have industrial presently in that area, correct?
There is a small piece of land at the intersection of Ohio and East Lake Mary Boulevard that has a residential, or has an industrial future land use on it. It's one small parcel at the corner.
Well, it's actually, it's more than just that, because if you go down that, never mind, it's just, I'm looking at this map because...
Continue, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you. We would not recommend industrial in this area. We'd also like to note that based on the public input we heard at community meetings, there's a desire for Marquette Avenue to remain open to local traffic. We do recognize that the opposing view has been also brought up to staff and some of the commissioners. Our recommendation is to keep it open for two reasons. One is the connection of the grid that's going to help emergency response times. And then also we heard from residents that they would like to use Marquette because it's when traffic is backed up on East Lake Mary Boulevard at the key peak AM and PM hours, it just adds headache to their trip to have to go out there. So they'd like to see Marquette remain open, but we do realize that it'll be an ongoing thing that staff and public, the planning staff, Public Works will evaluate on what's the best thing to do on that moving forward. Okay. I think we're good. All right, thank you. Area C is the airport entrance district, and this is really coming into the airport on Red Cleveland Boulevard, and it covers the Red Cleveland Boulevard Marquette intersection and some of those adjoining areas. Priority uses in this area include airport supportive commercial, office, or hotel. We recognize that with that development, we need to provide the visual screening, the buffers and setbacks as you transition to the residential areas to the west. And we recognize that depending on what happens as the airport grows, there may be the need for operational improvements at Red Cleveland Marquette Avenue. If Marquette becomes more of a if we add a sidewalk on Marquette and we want to keep people off East Lake Mary Boulevard to get between the residential neighborhoods and say Boom Boss Sports, then we need to make sure they can safely get across this intersection. So there may be some need for pedestrian crosswalks, for some signage and things like that at this intersection. Area D is the South Airport Commercial District, and this is really the area between Skyway Drive and Red Cleveland, and then between Marquette and East Lake Mary Boulevard. The land use options here that we're looking at are, again, airport supportive uses, general commercial, attendant retail, as well as public services. Thank you. Potential strategies, we really want to respect the provisions of the airport master plan to make sure we're meeting their needs with this area. This is near the entrance. There's going to be some key uses go in here. We also recognize that on the western part of this, you're at the end of the north-south runway, so there are restrictions on glide zones and clear zones and things like that. So this area will have to comply with the appropriate FAA requirements. And then we'd also be looking at operational improvements at the East Lake Mary Boulevard Skyway Drive intersection as this area increases the amount of traffic that it has. East Airport Commerce Park, Area E, this is really the largest area adjacent to the airport for development, and we're talking about the area between the two runways, the two east-west runways and East Lake Mary Boulevard. This area has future land uses of HIP AP and airport industry and commerce. And so we'd be looking at a host of airport operations. Some of them may be coming internal to the airport, some may be coming external. Airport supportive uses, business parks, commerce parks, light industrial, warehousing, office, and then mixed use, office over commercial. Some of the other strategies, as this area grows, we'd be looking at operational improvements at the East Lake Mary Boulevard, Morris Station Road intersection. And the HIP AP and the AIC future land uses both allow multifamily residential uses. However, the JPA has a matrix that restricts residential to a certain percentage of the overall land area. So we wanted to acknowledge that there may be a time and place for multi-family uses in this, loft apartments in a mixed-use scenario or something, but we did want to reflect that the JPA and FAA guidelines have a lot of restrictions for putting residential within, the 60 noise contour or above. You're really so close to the runways that there'd have to be a lot of soundproofing and things like that done. So we just wanted to acknowledge that with the multifamily. Area F is the Crossroads Commercial Corridor. This is the area that's near the intersection of East Lake Mary Boulevard and SR 46. And as the intersection of two regional transportation corridors, our land use options for this reflect this: arterial commercial, specialty commercial that may or may not be airport supportive, attendant retail, and then we also specify multifamily residential north of State Road 46. Now, the multifamily residential, again, that's reflective of the JPA that specifies that. There are the two schools west, but we would, again, not encourage a lot of multifamily because of the noise guidelines and what that would entail. Another potential strategy is we'd like to encourage backage roads or connected parking areas so that we're reducing curb cuts to these higher speed roads. And then the last thing is operational improvements at the SR 46 East Lake Mary Boulevard intersection. One of the things that commissioners, you mentioned to me when I came last time is we want to make sure that people in this area can get up to Lake Monroe, can get to the parks, can get to the trails around the lake. And as we talked with people who live in this area, they said they don't need, if they're on the east side of East Lake Mary Boulevard, they're hesitant to cross over to the west side to get to the sidewalks that go up to the lake because they say it's dangerous crossing. You have these slip lanes. Vehicles are looking at, behind them at what the traffic is. They're not looking at pedestrians. And they say they're very hesitant to cross, even though there are crosswalks here. And so the operational improvements at this intersection would be more pedestrian-oriented, whether it's a pedestrian lead time of the light, whether it's a pedestrian cross-only, short phase or something, but just something so that people feel comfortable crossing this intersection and will use the facilities in the area. Area G is the East Lake Mary Boulevard Business Center. This is the area east of Lake Mary Boulevard, south of SR 46. Very similar to the East Airport area. We're proposing specialty commercial, business park, industrial park, warehousing, office, but also in this area, public services and open space preserve as you get closer to the environmental areas of Lake Jessup. Provide some open space, provide some water recharge areas, things like that. Potential strategies, we are not recommending residential uses in this area. You're right at the end of the primary runway, so you've got planes either taking off or landing. This is where you have the highest noise contours, so we're not recommending residential in this area because of the flight path. We'd be looking at operational improvements at SR 46 Moores Station as this area develops. When you get development in that southeast quad of the East Lake Mary Boulevard SR 46 area, you start running into problems with how do you turn left because of the medians and things like that. So Moore Station Road becomes more of a way to provide circular traffic patterns from there. So we'd be looking at operational improvements at that intersection, as well as adding extending sidewalks on State Road 46 and on Moore Station Road. The last area, Area H, is the East Lake Mary Boulevard mixed use. district, and this covers the area really on the south side of East Lake Mary Boulevard. Our primary land uses we're recommending in this district are community commercial fronting Lake Mary Boulevard, general commercial fronting Lake Mary Boulevard, tourist supportive commercial. We realize you've got this adjacency with the Boomba Sports Complex, yet if mom and dad are there watching their kids on a weekend, they've got to get in the car to go somewhere if they want to eat, or Junior ripped his pants and needs new clothes or something. There's an opportunity to create some synergy between the commercial along this area and Boomba, restaurants, retail. So we think that's important to add to this, as well as parks and open space. Parks to help support the residential in this area, and then open space and preserve, again, to provide greenery, to provide shade, to provide water recharge to the aquifer. Our potential strategies, while we recognize that there is going to be residential development in this area, we're not prioritizing residential. But what we're prioritizing is non-residential uses fronting East Lake Mary Boulevard. That gives the direct access to East Lake Mary Boulevard. It provides a transition to the residential uses behind it, so you don't have all these residential uses backing up to the main road. And then it also provides goods and services to those residents. Hopefully that keeps some people out of their car. You can walk to these areas for your goods and services, and it cuts some of the traffic down. As in previous area that we talked about, we'd be looking at backage roads or connected parking to reduce curb cuts, visual buffers between the commercial and residential areas. And then, like I said, we would encourage parks in this area. Other recommendations that are not specific to an area or to a development node, we heard that there's really not an identity to this area. And so we recommend a gateway element at SR 46 East Lake Mary Boulevard to really identify this as an area. Maybe that's something that if you do something with the pavement, with some landscaping, with some theming, with some lighting, you may help slow cars down as they come into this area and they realize they're in, this is not a speedway through here. This is a development area. And we would hope that the elements of that gateway would also be used in other developments that that come up. And then, although it's not a part of the study, we heard time and time again about the East Lake Mary Boulevard, Ronald Reagan Boulevard intersection, how traffic backs up into the study area at peak times in the morning and the evening because of the light sequences, because of the short left turn lanes and things like that. And people say they're coming home on East Lake Mary Boulevard, they've got to go past their house, a couple curb cuts, U-turn, and then come back just to get in their driveway because traffic is backed up. So while it's not a part of the study area, we recommend that the county coordinate with DOT D5 and look at both short-term and long-term operational improvements at this intersection. So the next steps, we presented to Sanford City Commission a couple weeks ago, presenting to you today. Excuse me. We're presenting to the Airport Authority in a couple weeks. And then after that, we will gather up all our recommendations and present them at a community workshop. This says to be announced, to be determined August 2021. We have reserved a date, the evening of August 5th here in the BCC chambers. We will be publicizing that, sending out notices to residents, to businesses, to y'all to attend. And then after that, with the feedback I get from you today, with the feedback we get from the Airport Authority in our last community workshop, we'll put together the small area document. And that's really going to be we're going to summarize the whole process. We're going to have our recommendations, and it'll be a document for staff to use moving forward as development proposals come in. And so with that, thank you for your time, and I would love to entertain any questions that you have.
Commissioner Zimbauer?
Well, obviously, Commissioner Herr and I have a lot to digest. I want to make sure staff is getting the landscape and the gateway enhancement over to this consultant so that can be incorporated. I know we've been working on that for a while. I know the airport has seen it. I'd like to get an update on where that's going. I think that's going to be something that we want to discuss with the property owners along that corridor in with the FDOT grant monies that we've got and what we intend to do, that we need to come up with maybe some kind of arrangement on how the HOAs and other commercial developers along there may want to participate in the maintenance schedule and so forth. And I've talked to many of them who are open to that idea, but the sooner we can get that out, that should be included with this as well. I'd also like to know, going back into the 80s and 90s, when there was a whole community discussion about the Sanford JPA and what the plans will be to open that up for making sure all the property owners that have certain entitlements already in place and how this may or may not impact their vested rights on those properties moving forward. I've had several calls about that, and I've just said, look, hang on, we're studying. It will be my expectation that those property owners will all be notified, and we may have to open that JPA up completely for further discussion. Also, the Midway area, I'd like to understand how they've been brought into this for discussion and so forth as well.
Okay, thank you. We will be making recommendations in our report related to the JPA, so that may help open up that discussion moving forward.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Hurd.
I've shared all of this with staff before, but I'll put it on the record. I actually think your presentation talked about quality of life in the vision statement, but the vision statement kind of misses that in terms of directly saying that that is our most significant concern. And I think it should be added because as I've seen up here, we look at things from 10 years ago and go by memory as to what the intention was, and I'd like not to leave this to memory. Silver Lake Residential, from my perspective, should not be negatively impacted by the Silver Lake frontage. So the notion that you could live on one side of the lake in this very pristine setting, and the other side of the lake could be light industrial or clean industrial, doesn't seem to have little or no impact. So the reference to clean industrial there was bothersome. And there was a mention of suburban estates existing there, and so those are two opposite ends of the spectrum, and I'm not sure that that would work either. The Silver Lake Residential is currently, I believe, not 2 units per acre. The suggestion is to move to 2 units per acre now with even more increased density later, and I think that's inconsistent with the conversation around not negatively impacting that area. The local feedback that I'm getting about Marquette Avenue is that we want it shut down. So I can't reconcile between what you heard and the few residents that were there, but we need to push through that. I realize there's an issue with the fire department, and I realize there's issues with traffic. But as that airport grows, and people look for alternative ways to come out of an airport through a neighborhood, it's going to have a significant impact. So the document says that residents said, we don't want it shut down. That is not what my office is hearing. Very consistently not what my office is hearing. As a matter of fact, I've not heard from anyone that doesn't want it shut down, but I've heard from several that do. I find this concept to be difficult to grasp, and that is the notion that we would even consider putting multifamily in the airport area so close to the runways. I think we're opening ourselves up to future complaints that we would absolutely not be able to address, and I think we're opening our citizens up to signing a lease in a location that is untenable in terms of living. So that one threw me off. So that's the Airport Commerce Park. With regard to the Crossword Roads commercial, same comment, different reason. Multifamily up against the environmental area seems inconsistent with the direction of the intent of the study. And then my last comment for staff is that coordination with DOT with regard to Ronald Reagan and Lake Mary Boulevard shouldn't wait for the study to be done. That's an issue now.
Thank you.
That's it, Chairman.
May I just respond to a couple of those real quick? Multifamily north of 46, I think would be west of East Lake Mary Boulevard. There's really not a lot of room east, so that may be something we need to specify. And I totally agree with you about the impacts of multifamily in that area, but we did recognize that the HIP AP does allow multifamily. Although if you look in the JPA, like I said, has this matrix, and it's like 0.5% of the total area can be multifamily. So it's very small percentage that would even be allowed. And then the last thing, in terms of the light industrial on the East Lake Mary Boulevard frontage, what I heard from residents is they said they would rather have an industrial use there as opposed to small lot residential. They said there's less impact and more regulation in that use than there is small lot, single family. So that was put in there from what we heard from the residents in that area. Thank you.
Commissioner Lockhart and then Commissioner Delory.
Thank you. I'm going to echo many of the things that Commissioner Hurt said. I actually have heard from no one as well that they're interested in keeping Marquette open. I did talk to some property owners on Golden Lake, different situation than Silver Lake, although we're calling the whole area Silver Lake. I think because there are already some parcels on Ohio, on the east side of Ohio, I think, that are either commercial, industrially-ish, that there is debate among families even whether or not they should be looking to the future and future generations. Well, yes, we love living here now and it's delightful on our 5 acres, but is that really what the future should look like? And so there's that conversation, I think, taking place. And with Ohio being that dividing line between Silver and Golden, I don't know what a transition could look like. To Commissioner Herr's point, on one side of Silver Lake, suburban estates, pristine lake, the other side, clean industrial or or more, dense,
Airport-related.
something. And then to somehow skip just across the street to Golden Lake, I'd love to see some suggestions for what that could really look like. Because I personally think that's going to be one of the most difficult areas for us to really plan. I also am a little concerned with the Richmond Moore Station area. Not knowing who you received the input from, I know there are some residents on Richmond, some beautiful, lovely residential homes there on quite a bit of acreage, and so I don't know what their specific feedback has been, if you've gotten it from them, or, when we receive feedback that said, you don't know if it's the feedback of the person that's going to be the most impacted, or, someone who has, not been living in the area for quite some time anyway and is looking to sell. So, anyway, some more in-depth conversation I would love to have on that Ohio area.
Thank you.
Commissioner Delory.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I like your presentation. I think you need to have a slide that talks about the noise contours. This county established them many years ago, and they're in partnership with the airport as well as Sanford. And I think if you have a slide that talks about the noise contours in this area, you'll clean up a lot of questions. That's one of my suggestions.
Thank you.
I'd also talk about Marquette and Silver Lake. I think that's an issue. I've not heard anyone that says that should be a through road, especially because of the industrial that's right there. And I have not yet been convinced by your presentation that it should be. You also said that with the HIP AP zoning, there's a small percentage of multifamily. If it's that small, why are we going there? That's just a thought.
That's where I was.
And I think that there's more pain there than is what it's worth. I think that we also need to be talking about FARs and potential FARs, because I think the FAA will have issues with the FAR. And I want to make sure that we know what that max number is so that we can all be on the same page.
Okay.
Your issue with Ronald Reagan and Airport Boulevard is an important one. You may not be aware of this, but the Turnpike is talking about widening the 417. With that becomes an opportunity of intersection improvements with the Turnpike. I'm hoping that we can convince them that the Airport Boulevard interchange should be addressed at that point. Once that is done, that will eliminate, or hopefully eliminate, some of your issues with Ronald Reagan and Lake Murray Boulevard. And Turnpike is not, even though it's a state agency, it's not D5. It's not. So you may want to talk to our staff and talk about how that could work together. Not saying that intersection shouldn't be addressed, but it's a different agency altogether.
Perfect, thank you.
More thoughts, Commissioner Lockhart?
Well, you met with the city of Sanford, but do we know what their feedback was?
There wasn't a lot of feedback. No,
Well, did you get a lot of feedback today, sir?
Yes, thank you.
There you go.
This is just what I need to move forward with preliminary recommendations moving forward.
We have
So thank
citizens
you.
that want to speak also. And just my observation is, I think, very similar to what Commissioner Herr indicated. And, you know, I think we need to minimize the amount of residential near an airport. It's just asking for trouble. I always love people that come back and say, you know, we're living near UCF and there's students here and we didn't know students were going to be here. You know, well, people will say we didn't know an airport was there.
Mr. Chairman, one more note, may I finish? My final comment is about Silver Lake. Silver Lake, I want to make sure that whatever we're doing, we're helping that lake and not hurting it.
Absolutely.
And because from what I've heard from residents, I've actually went on a couple people's docks, it's not what it used to be. And I want to make sure that we're actually getting it to where it used to be and not where people are concerned about that lake going downhill.
Yes, absolutely.
And Golden isn't touched right now, so we have to be very careful with that one. Okay, I see Rebecca's up, so I believe that she might have a comment before I open it up to public comment. Rebecca?
Thank you. For the record, Rebecca Hammack, Development Services Director. I just wanted to clarify the point that some, as you know, these areas do have existing future land use designations on them, and some of them do allow limited amount of residential uses. And I think the study was trying to recognize that, but also say we should very heavily restrict those. So part of the process, and then what I've been talking to David about, is we really need, once we finalize the recommendations and we get all the feedback, then we need to figure out what changes would need to be made to the JPA? Would there be changes that need to be made to the future land use map or text amendments to certain future land use designations based on those ultimate recommendations within the study, if the board accepts those?
Thank you.
So, and I think that's what Commissioner Zimbauer was alluding to. There's going to be the balance of, are we taking entitlements away from landowners as well?
Thank you very much. Okay, Clint, Clint Patterson, I've recognized that I haven't seen anyone in virtual world today for any of the other things. Is there anybody in it for this one right now?
No, sir.
No, sir. Good, okay, good. Thank you very much. Susan McCaskill, I believe that you are here for this issue.
Yes. Good morning. Maybe it's afternoon.
Yeah, it's afternoon.
Yeah, we're in afternoon.
My name is Susan McCaskill, and I have 3.8 acres on the east side of Ohio.
Address, ma'am, I'm sorry.
3205 and 3215 Ohio. So it starts on the east side and goes down to the lakefront. And my family's owned this land for 65 years, and it's a little bit emotional to talk about it because the memories I have of this are very precious. And I have to tell you that never in my wildest dreams growing up there did I ever think that Sanford would have an international airport or that over 3 million people a year would come through it to take airline flights, not just in this country, but all over the globe. And if you're listening, and I'm sure you are, to all the people that want to come here, you realize that we're just going to get bigger, a lot bigger. So I say it's very hard to adjust to change, but sometimes we're forced to recognize it and to participate in it positively. So that's my intent. So before talking about my thoughts about the east side of Ohio, I want to state unequivocally that I'm in support of the people that live on the west side of Ohio and their interest in being what we call the Silver Lake Residential District. I'm all for them. I have no problem with that. I'm here because we're in a different situation on the east side of Ohio. When I stand on that lakefront, there are just a few of us along there, and I want to say that some of my neighbors are here, and more wanted to be here, but this is a difficult time for people to come. They're business people, they're working, and they couldn't be here. We support, we have this suburban estate zoning, and right now we have a future land use of suburban estates as well. However, our little small area there, just like this little island, is completely surrounded by airport, industry, and commerce. It's an awkward place to be. So I really want to say to you that in the joint planning agreement between the county and the city, that Exhibit C, Item 4, states, establish Ohio Avenue as a north-south line separating low-density residential uses to the west and airport-related uses to the east. So I'm asking that the future land use of the properties on the east side of Ohio become airport, industry, and commerce in keeping with this joint agreement. And that will give those of us on the east side of Ohio not the feeling of being some little tiny group there, being surrounded by the other. Because at any time that the people that have that airport, industry, and commerce designation decide to move forward with that, we are not going to be looking at anything that we understand. I mean, right now it looks green, but who knows how long that will last. So we're trying to be realistic, and that's why we're here today. So I appreciate you listening. I can't really explain to you how it feels to know that everything around you is going to change, but you're still only going to have suburban estates, and that's really what we'd like your help with. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Yes.
Ms. McCaskill?
Ms. McCaskill?
Yes.
Questions?
Could I ask you a question? Sure. Would you? Okay. So I believe I've spoken to some of your neighbors on the east side of Ohio, and they have shared with me almost identically what you have just shared. How many of your neighbors, because there are just a handful of the property owners, although it's quite a length of road, could you approximate for me how many property owners you think you might be speaking for?
Well, I think there are about 8 or 9 of us. I mean, the Runyons are here. I have 3.8 acres. They have 6.5. Israel Nash is here. He has another parcel. There's several other people whose names I could mention. I think we have over half, but, and we've talked about signing, a little petition to let you know that. I mean, I recognize that, it's a hard decision for you to make, but realistically, we aren't residential anymore. And, I mean, we are and we intend to be as long as we can be. But we don't want to be in this situation where we have a future land use that really isn't taking into consideration what the future land use is. We're talking 10, 20 years.
Right. Thank you.
The one thing I do want to add in is Golden Lake. I know Golden Lake. Every day it was warm enough to be in Golden Lake, I was in it. It is not the lake it used to be at all. And I am happy to know that Silver Lake is. But we're so surrounded by the airport itself that we're not. And I don't know if that can ever be reconstructed. I mean, just being truthfully, we used to swim in it, ski in it, all of it. I never see anybody swimming in it. I never see anybody in a boat in it. So it's different. It's just a different situation. But absolutely, let's keep Silver Lake the way it is. That's my story. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Further comments? I think that you, Mr. Nelson, you've heard a great deal today. There's some residents here. Residents, if you want to talk to Mr. Nelson as this meeting adjourns or recesses, please feel free to do so. I think it's important that he hears your comments. Also, Ms. McCaskill, and she's already heard that, but the others that are here, please get with him. You've seen, you know who he is. He's right up here in the front. Okay, with that, we also have Scott McIntyre is hiding over there, sort of. Been very, very quiet and peaceful.
I always make this poor man go right before lunch.
I know it. So, Mr. McIntyre?
Okay, I've got a number of slides that I'm going to just touch on because I'm very aware of the time here. So, and I'm here today primarily because we're making some recommendations that are a little bit, we haven't made such large recommendations in a while. I felt like I needed to be here. So, and I'm not going to go through these events driving the market. I just will tell you that the economic growth is a lot stronger than people anticipated it would be, and we're still on pace for the potentially strongest full year of economic growth since 1951. And that is creating some inflation. A lot of that was expected, but inflation is beyond where people expected that it might be. So the Fed has reacted. The Fed had a meeting last week, and they tweaked their policy. They basically brought rates on the extreme short end a tiny bit higher with some slight policy changes that did give us an opportunity here to buy at levels that we haven't seen in a while. The only thing I want to say about employment is that the jobs have returned well before the workers have. You guys have read about everything from fast food restaurants to the airlines not being able to continue flights. American canceled 200 flights recently because they didn't have the personnel. Recently, the JOLT survey came out, which is a job openings and labor turnover survey. It showed that there were 9.3 million job postings that were listed. The number of jobs that have not returned during the pandemic is 7.6. So the jobs, again, have returned. The people have not. Again, I had mentioned the rising prices. Right now, consumer price index is the highest it's been in 29 years. The Fed believes, or at least many Fed officials believe, that will be temporary. There are other Fed officials who believe that it is more than just temporary. As a matter of fact, it's a little bit hard to read that without my glasses, but the year-over-year, it's actually not even on here, but the year-over-year pace over the last 3 months for consumer inflation is at almost 7%. You guys have seen that in the prices on a lot of different goods. And again, the debate right now is whether it's temporary or more long-lasting. So as I mentioned before, the Fed came in, they made some small tweaks They did not raise the overnight rate. The expectation is still that they are a while away before that happens. The small changes that they did make did manage to boost the 12-month Treasury from about 5 to 8 or 9 at this point in time. The 24-month Treasury, which got down to 9 and was 16 as recently as last week, is now closer to 27. The 3-year Treasury, which got down its lowest 14, was in the low 30s last week, is now approaching 50. All of those we feel like, are giving us opportunities that we haven't had for several months. You can see some of the other opportunities that we have. There aren't a whole lot. The banks, which offer a lot of really outstanding levels and a lot of money with the county, is at the banks. The banks don't want any more money right now. So a couple of these maturities that I'm listing were, I did mention the last meeting. Obviously, one of the securities that matured is already matured. There are then a total of $30 million coming up within the next couple weeks. Some of those at high yields, some of those at not so high yields. We are recommending $55 million worth of Treasury note purchases. The chairman had asked at one point when we were going to start buying Treasuries again. We are much higher than we were. We feel like it still makes quite a bit of sense. The Fed is not going to wait 3 years before they start raising the overnight rate. The last Fed meeting indicated that it would be closer to 2 years. So we feel like we can safely put it on a 2-year security at, it's moving all around actually right now, but 27-ish, which beats the pool rates, which are closer to 8 basis points, a 1-year Treasury, which is closer to 8. We also feel like making a 1-year purchase makes some sense right now because that matches the highest pool rate. And then we're actually stepping out or asking to step out with a small portion out to the 3-year sector at 48, give or take. All of these economists and fixed income traders believe are good spots on the curve to be given expected Fed policy. So we're in essence replacing securities that are maturing. We feel like we're adding to the Treasury position with your full faith and credit. And what I'm asking is a motion to implement these Treasury recommendations and to recommend that the clerk implement the board recommendations.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the request.
Is there a second?
Second.
Before I take the motion, Mr. Clerk, everything's fine? You agree with that?
Yep, everything is super fine.
Just wanted to hear your voice. Yes, Commissioner Zimbauer.
I have a question for Mr. McIntyre. In reviewing of this board's policy in light of what's going on in the market right now, is there anything that you think we ought to be considering? I have some concern about the A rating versus maybe going and changing and revising our policy to something that gives us a little more flexibility in light of what's going on in the market. I mean, I understand what the Fed's saying, but you can't defeat gravity.
Sure.
And the reality is, as we see the consumer prices continue to climb, the workforce not coming back, it's going to be a dangerous and perilous ride, I believe. But I have a concern and want to know your take on our policy when it comes to the A ratings versus maybe what we want to consider.
I'm glad you allowed us to bring that up. There's one point, there is a repurchase agreement. You're allowed to invest in repurchase agreements. Within the repurchase agreement, in the policy, it says that you can invest in primary dealers, U.S. primary dealers. There are 23 of them. They're the bigger investment firms. And those repos have to be fully secured at 102% with Treasury collateral behind them, so they're secured. But then on top of it, policy says that you have to have, for these primary dealers, an A rating. And a lot of primary dealers, including Goldman Sachs Unsecured Long-Term, Credit Suisse, Nomura, which we had actually looked at, don't actually have that A rating, but it's fully secured. So if I were going to make a recommendation for the future along these lines, I would recommend that A rating or any rating be dropped for fully secured investments. And that gives us a little bit of latitude in the event that we do see a repurchase agreement with the primary dealer that makes some sense in the future. But beyond that, I mean, I think the policy could probably use some eyeballs and some discussion going forward. But if I were going to make one change, that would be it.
Commissioner, I just wanted you to know that Ms. Bailey Brown is also already looking into that from our staff, so that she's going to bring a suggestion, recommendation on that. That was in the discussion that we had last week. Okay, so you're right on there. I mean, that we need to look at that, in my opinion. Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. I would also like to say that we still have one thing. County Attorney, do you have anything else?
Nothing at this time.
Okay, it's County Manager. I see you move your...
Chairman, I was going to give the board an update on the ILA this morning. I sent you all an email. I'm happy to do that in the afternoon if you want to get to lunch, but I just didn't want anybody to think that I had forgotten about that.
Anybody want it now or then?
Whatever.
Later. Okay, cool. We have a unanimous agreement on that one. Okay, it's 12:30. What I'm going to say is, again, we want to give at least more than an hour, so we're going to say 1:45. Is that all right with everybody? Okay, we're going to recess until 1:45.